horns charged a long-awaited sound. We rise from silence, truth in every pound. Gish Gallop Girl is back, ready to ignite, debunking every lie, shining through the night. Together we'll stand, united, brave and bold, against the darkness, watch the truth unfold. Gish Gallop Girl, we bring the light, cut through the shadows, expose the fight. With knowledge and courage, we'll break the chains. Together we rise, through truth we gain. Can they speak their truths, but they're filled with deceit? A shot in the dark, but we won't feel defeat. Through Gardasil's story, we'll reclaim the voice. With facts on our side, we'll make it our choice. No more fears, no more doubts in our way. We'll fight for the truth, today's our day. Cut through the shadows, expose the fight. With knowledge and courage, we'll break the chains. Together we rise, through truth we gain. So tune in now, let the battle begin. With the Gish Gallop power, we will rise.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to the show, everyone. You just heard the new Gish Gallop Girl theme for this week. That was Metal Motivational, brought to us by the Donna app. My name, as always, is Thomas Anderson. I'm here with
Matthew Anderson,
my son, and so, it has been several months since our last recording, which was partly titled Post-Election Blues. That one was done about 2 weeks after the disastrous election turnout, and aside from losing my fire for a bit, we also ran into a lot of life things that pushed this show to the side. One of them was, for me, work. As I've said many times before, I work for Shipt, S-H-I-P-T. So I shop and deliver groceries for people. I like my job, but a huge consideration I have to make during the winter here in Minneapolis is the temperature. See, I get a lot of production time done on episodes during downtime moments during the day. But in winter, when the temps can get to minus 20 Fahrenheit, I have to consider that might not be the best thing for my computer to sit in, as the temp in car drops while I'm inside a store doing my job for sometimes an hour or more. I don't like the idea of my equipment getting possibly messed up, and also my downtime gets cut short.
Hi, Squish.
And there comes my cat. My downtime gets cut short when I have to factor in the hazards of driving on ice and snow and dealing with other drivers that don't seem to give a shit about those conditions. So I also have to factor in higher driving times, which leads to less downtime during the day. Give me a second here. Okay. The kitty has joined the people, and I will put her up here. There we go.
Hi, Squish.
All right.
No Squish.
Yeah. Okay, so this was a milder winter than the first year we were here, but it still had its moments. But all of that said, I will try moving forward to do better in the next winter, because we are back. I have taken down the Patreon, and we will not be seeking sources of funding for this show. I I never took a Patreon payout, and I refunded what I could to our supporters back in early February of this year, 2025. I refunded because we hadn't made a show in 2 months, and I honestly hadn't so much as looked at the Patreon since the last episode had gone up. I really just needed a full mental break from everything. But moving on, I never set up the full payout method on the Patreon, and we won't be seeking funding, not even ads, moving forward. The reasons for this are many, but to me, the most stark reason to not seek funding is that it's an easy way to get doxxed. I have been concerned about this for some time because Patreon is just a company, and I don't expect them to protect my information if the weaponized DOJ comes in with demands or a lawyer for Candace Owens does the same. Linking our show to my bank account, they would need the barest of info to dox us. As it is, that was the only loose thread that I was ever concerned about, and it's why I never linked the money to my account. I figured if it ever built up enough, maybe I would take the payout, but it never did, and honestly I never expected it to because this is a niche subject kind of show. So, I killed the Patreon officially on March 1st of 2025. This show is being done entirely for free, and I will be using some of my production time every day, even just a few minutes here and there, to make the website better and more accessible with sources, show scripts, song downloads, and episode downloads. It doesn't cost much to keep a website running, thankfully. All I can ask of people is that they share the information they find useful. With that in mind, we are not going to be engaging much with Candace Owens' current trend of celebrity gossip shows, as we almost never touched on it anyway before. I managed to get my hands on her entire series of anti-vax shows, A Shot in the Dark. Mm-hmm. And that is going to be our focus moving forward from here, at least until that series is done. We will be checking into the things we may have missed after all of this is settled. Candace never stops working, but most of what she says and does is the same things over and over and over in public, because that's a feature of narcissism. Find a path to walk down and then trot it so much that it is smooth. You can see this in all of these dingbats. Shapiro does it, and it's why he gets schooled in debates these days. He says the same general talking points, and people he debates, even in quick debates, where they sit across from him quickly and have a minute or so to go at him, they school him. The same happens with Crowder and these other people when they engage with anyone that has their number. I haven't checked into Candace's daily shows in months. I haven't felt it was necessary. But I will make that trek through her crap eventually. I am certain there are things that slipped under the radar of people that were vile and worth pushing back on. But for now, let's get on with part 1 of this series. After I ask you, anything to add?
Shit. Well, I mean, nothing I can think of. I've been watching laws and stuff get either, is the right word repealed when they're removed?
I mean, that depends. What do you mean? What are you talking about specifically?
Oh, there were, like the one with the, removing the need for diversity hire and all that.
Oh, yeah. No, that is
stuff.
Well, that depends. Trump has been issuing all sorts of executive orders to repeal things. So, yeah, get things getting repealed.
Yeah. Okay.
But people are appealing those decisions with court orders and, lawsuits and shit. So. And
it also has been a little fun watching Elon get burnt into the ground.
Yeah. That's
wish the fires would escalate a little bit more on that, but
that dude is all kinds of fucked up. Mm-hmm. What I'm going to guess at what's been going on with Candace Elon is I would not be surprised if she's been just fully in his corner on everything all the time.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if she's fully in Trump's corner on everything all the time right now. I would be shocked if she was actually going to go against the Trump family grain of talking about annexing entire other countries and going to war.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if she was actually against that if she actually showed some fucking backbone. But
she might be in support of taking over French Canada,
yeah, right.
given her, apprehension to the French.
She did a whole ass other series that I haven't bothered to fuck with yet, called Becoming Brigitte. Yeah, it's about Brigitte Macron because she can't just let that shit go. She can't just let it go that she was wrong. So yeah, that's one of the things that I've seen the titles of, because I keep an eye on the titles, when I'm doing my daily podcast runs, and I have not, like, a lot of the headlines or a lot of the titles of her shows are, things that indicate celebrity gossip.
Yeah.
Like, she's big into this whole Blake Lively bullshit right
kitty.
now. The cat is trying to brush up against our microphone here. Can't just sit still.
Nope.
But, so that kind of brought me around to, within the last couple of weeks, they had mentioned Candace Owens on the daily show of It Could Happen Here.
Yeah.
Which is part of Robert Evans' Cool Zone Media Network. Occasionally, like, Robert Evans will actually do stuff on the show about once or twice a week.
Yeah.
But he has other people that handle other daily episodes. But this was one of those such times where one of their other people and someone they brought in as a guest talked about Candace Owens.
Yeah.
And people had asked on the It Could Happen Here blog previously, or not blog, Reddit previously, if anyone was doing a show about Candace Owens. And I had answered back on that about a month ago, and I was like, well, I do.
Yeah.
like I do with my son. We've had to, put stuff on hold for a bit while we work some other things out. And after they had done their whole question and answer bit about Candace Owens on It Could Happen Here, I popped up a post on the Reddit for that show.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you for, calling attention to this subject. And, I mentioned the show, and like I mentioned the show, but I didn't put the name right in there at first because I have learned over time that it's bad Reddit etiquette to plug your own shit in an original post. So, yeah. So I was like, all right. But when people asked me what the name of the show was, I told them, and I said, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Like, I just had to work a bunch of life crap out.
Yeah.
So, that all said, we will be coming back with new episodes every 2 weeks. They will be posted, anywhere between Tuesday through Friday, given our various work schedules and times and how long it takes to actually record one of these fucking episodes.
Yeah.
Let me make sure my microphone didn't just go off. Okay, good. It's still running. The screen went off. And so I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But, anyway, so, we will be making great pains to keep up with this and do it right. But again, you're all getting this for free. No one's fucking paying for this.
Yeah.
So if we miss a couple of days here and there, please know that I am working on shit and he is working on shit, and we have lives and shit outside of your earbuds. So, I mean, I do what I can. I work on this during my downtime, and I work on it when I get home, usually for about an hour or two until I have just hit my fucking limit.
Yeah.
And, man.
With the occasional break to shoot Nazis and...
Yeah.
Whichever one of the Nazi killing games you have.
I have so many.
Yeah.
If I had a bigger hard drive on my Xbox, I would have so many more. I need to get one of those 2 terabyte deals.
How's the, have you tried the new Sniper Elite yet?
I have not, but it's installed.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, thank God for Game Pass I didn't have to pay for it, because I wouldn't have. But let's get things kicked off here. So, to start this series, I decided to give Candace the leeway and grace that I always show her. And I went to the VAERS site. Do you know what VAERS is?
No.
Okay. VAERS is spelled VAERS, and it stands for Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. It is still currently being maintained by the CDC, and I hope it continues to be. Anyway, I put in all the relevant data, and I encourage anyone listening to do the same. The link to VAERS will be in the show notes. I put in everything Candace has said about the time she received the Gardasil vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
She claims that it happened when she was 19 in college. It happened in the year 2019, and I was able to put in both Rhode Island, where she attended college, and Connecticut, her home state. I put in her reported symptoms of fainting and seizure. I included all 4 versions of the vaccine to cover all the bases. I put it in as doctor visits because, according to her, she was in a private doctor's office. But I also included school just in case.
Yeah.
Like maybe if she went to the school office.
Yeah.
I used VAERS to put in results that she claimed happened to her. Now, the beauty of doing the VAERS system is you can put in so much shit when you're looking for vaccine events.
Mm-hmm.
The thing to remember is that this system exists for the public to get information on vaccines and what kind of harm can come from them. It is an open book, and anyone can report symptoms to VAERS, including patients. Doctors are legally required to report to VAERS, and vaccine makers are also required to disclose information to the system as soon as they are aware of them. Concerning her symptoms, I could find nothing. And neither did her doctors. Well, I could find nothing. My reports came up absolutely nil. No one like her reported the symptoms, and neither did her doctors. And she claims to have had 2 doctors at the time, plus a nurse present.
Yeah. At least one of them is obligated to report it.
Yeah. This has led me to believe, sans any other evidence, that she is making this all up. I believe that the cornerstone of her Gardasil story either did not happen or did not happen to her.
Yeah.
I could see her coming up with it whole cloth, based on the most rare known side effects of Gardasil being what she has described, including brain fog for years after the vaccine was administered in the 2nd dose. I am basing this again on the fact that I could not replicate her given data in VAERS, and I scoured multiple interviews and public statements Candace has given on this topic. You know the worst part? I actually wanted this to be true in some way so that maybe this monstrous behavior she engages in would have some basis in actual reality.
Yeah.
But that is not the case at this time. I believe, and this is not something that I can prove, but I'm putting it out there for now, I believe that Candace was in over her head in college, and this was a nice cover story for why she did poorly in school. I am basing this on how bad her work and research as an adult is. Unfortunately, unless she releases her academic records to the general public, we will never know how close to the mark I am. Since a joint Congress made it a crime several years ago to see anyone's school record without consent.
Oh.
Like, it's a felony.
Really?
It's a federal felony, yeah.
Jesus.
It's just a theory I have. But for factual material related, because I tried looking up her school records months ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I could not. And I was like, is this an actual law? Yes, it is an actual fucking law. I want to say it was passed in 2003. I could have that year wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was 2003. Anyway, all of this is just a theory that I have. But for factual material related to her story with all the possible elements thrown in, I could not back it up with data from VAERS. Take that as you will. I will likely reference this as needed as we go through the various episodes. The first episode of this series actually starts with Gardasil and the HPV vaccine. After about 17 seconds of theme music, we get into Candace saying,
Wow, oh wow, episode 1 of A Shot in the Dark, now on the Daily Wire. I am beyond excited right now. I came in essentially skipping into work today because this has been a dream of mine and now it is about to be realized. So let's just back this up. If you are a person and you were formerly watching A Shot in the Dark on Parler, you know exactly what this is about. I want you to know that we are going to recreate those first 10 or 11 episodes. And if you are new to this series, maybe somebody sent it to you and said you should take a look at this.
Wait, did she say if you're a person?
What?
I know that's a tiny thing to nitpick on this, but did she say if you were a person?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is the the tunnel under the mountain that we're going to go through.
Yeah, this is her Daily Wire personality, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but in case anyone needed reminding, Candace Owens' husband, George Farmer, was the CEO of Parler, an alt-right social media site spelled as Parler. And it failed a few years back. Farmer wasn't the founder of the site, but he was the CEO. They almost sold it to Ye.
Almost.
In 2022. But he pulled away at the last minute on the deal and they were left holding the bag. Is that another cat that wants in here?
Yep.
Jesus, all right. Come on.
Come on, old girl. Yep. Up.
Yeah, she'll figure it out, I guess.
Yep.
Okay. So, back to where I was. Yeah, but he pulled away at the last minute on the deal and they were left holding the bag. Parler went away for a while and came under new ownership and is now back up as an app on Apple. From what I can tell, based on reviews and breakdowns of it, it is trying to be now what Twitter is.
Okay.
In that, they request identification documents of users that want to be influencers and get paid, which that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
That's typical verification.
Yeah. I mean, that's for tax purposes and shit. I'm not going to take that away from them. They prefer that people self-identify, period, with their actual IDs that they insist are destroyed upon full account creation and so on. So, like, if you want to make an account, they insist that you use your actual ID, whether or not you're going to be an influencer and get paid.
So,
and they tell you that they will destroy your account, your identifying account data on completion of, giving you your account.
Okay.
Now, the fucked up thing about that is that they said the same shit back when Anonymous hacked them.
And everybody got the...
Yeah, people got outed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the shit wasn't even in, like, an encrypted file. Now, people can learn from mistakes, but these people tend to be stupid as shit.
See, I wonder how easy and gleeful that Anonymous member was. Just, like, sitting there just... Click, clack, click. What the Hey, Jerome, you'll never believe what I just fucking found.
Right? Like, oh my God.
I don't know why I picked Jerome, but...
I think we need a lot more hackers named Jerome. I think the world would be a better place. So, yeah, if Twitter is doing anything, Parler seems to follow along. I really don't see why anyone currently in the Twitter ecosystem would bother with anything less, if they're the type of person that would have been on Parler otherwise. Elon celebrated letting the Nazis back on, so why go elsewhere?
It's the only people I know of that are on Twitter.
Yeah.
Don't post on there because they have an OnlyFans link through Twitter. And when everything started happening, they stopped posting, probably fully expecting to get kicked off the platform.
Right.
But they still have, like, their link tree and shit hooked up to it. I only know this from going through Instagram and going, oh, that chick's hot. Tink. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, of course, OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well... Elon celebrated letting the Nazis back on, so I go elsewhere. Seems like an absurd risk, but whatever. Anyway, her series originally was on that failed experiment, and she reposted it to the Daily Wire. I managed to get these from users on Rumble that uploaded them and posted about the uploads to people on her locals page in response to paying users on locals getting pissed off that the episodes were not up many months after she said they would be. She kept saying that there were problems with getting the episodes, and maybe for her that was true. So with this episode and several others moving forward, we're working with re-uploads from the Daily Wire. She has made more since these were posted, but here's where it gets a little more interesting. So Candace made about a dozen of these. She made 11, I think, 11 to 13 of these for the Daily Wire, and then her contract was ended with them.
Yeah.
She, of course, had the account she had set up over there. She, of course, had the account she set up over there at Locals, and we've talked about that before. But I just want to catch everyone up. Locals is a sort of Patreon for terrible people like Candace, Russell Brand, and many others. It's a real murderer's row of the worst people that can't get a Patreon. Well, over the last few months, Candace took herself off of Locals. If you go there now, you'll only find about 4 fake accounts. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. One of those fake accounts has 280 followers when I checked it the other day. What she did was she moved people's accounts over from Locals to the new direct support site, clubcandace.com.
Oh, okay.
And notified users via email and site messages. I know that because I got that fucking email. Ed Thomas Anderson at gishgallopgirl.com. I love it. So these people, I am convinced, are the most hardcore supporters. It costs almost $17 per month to be part of her club.
Wait, why is it? Wait, hang on. Why is it almost $17?
It's like $16.99 or some shit.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say that she did the
But
whole
if you
stupid
do-
thing with the
well, if
Rumble
you do-
coin and all that.
No. The Rumble coins, thankfully, now are dead.
Okay.
But if I had any of the emails ready, I'd pull one up and read it off. But basically, she notified people that they were moving over to Club Candace, and all of the local subscriptions, regardless of what anyone had to say about it, all of the local subscriptions would be sent over to Club Candace for their remaining time. Like, let's say you bought, 3 months or whatever via Locals coins,
Yeah.
which I'm going to say was cheaper than this Club Candace shit.
Okay. That
It was about $8 a month to
Okay.
support her on Locals. I think like $7 or $8 a month.
so much for 1 cent, but yeah.
Yeah. To $17?
Yeah.
Now, if you had signed up, like I said, I think she was fair about it. Like, let's say you had just signed up and you had like 3 months, 6 months, whatever, paid up via Locals coins.
Yeah.
Your membership would translate over to Club Candace for that same amount of time.
But you'd have to start paying the
The higher rate when that was done.
See, I feel like
But that was
Granted.
that was her little gift to her supporters that had taken her that far.
okay. See, I feel like, of course, then again, I'm not a money grubbing bastard,
Right.
but I feel like,
Yeah, we're both Jews, but we're not like that. Yeah.
yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
We're very giving Jews.
Yeah.
But the whole,
I tipped 25% at the delicatessen today.
I mean,
And 10% at the bakery connected to them.
oh shit, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Anyway.
I always get shit whenever I go out to a restaurant with my friends and I'm the one paying and I pay like $20 into it no matter what, and I'll go,
Yeah.
oh, that was all $90? Shit, I'll go ahead and give them a third, tip.
Right.
And they go, what the fuck, dude? I'm like, what? It was good fucking food. The waiter did their job. They came over, they took our order, they fucked off for the rest of the evening. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
But, no, the whole money grubbing thing. Well,
Yeah.
where was I again? Right.
Yeah.
And make the people who, started supporting her on Locals, maybe when she transferred all their shit over, keep them at the discounted rate from Locals because, they've been a hardcore, long-time
Yeah.
supporter, clearly. So maybe keep them at a discounted rate so they keep watching. I know that's not how her followers work. I know her followers are more like me with playing D2 and going, man, this is some bullshit. Take my $70.
Yeah.
But still, no, Squish. That was not
What
an
did she-
invitation for me to pet you.
Jeez. Silly cat.
But still.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, like, why not just continuously reward your people?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if she's going to do that. I don't know any of that shit.
Yeah.
But I think it would be a real dick move to just start charging people $17 a month.
Yeah.
Like, I think it is slightly less if you sign up for a year.
Okay.
It's one of those
Yeah.
deals. But still, like, it's not down to $7 or $8, a month or whatever.
Squish. What do you... Don't rub on that. You're going to hit
Just-
the button.
Jeez. Just silly cat. Just lay down, girl. Silly girl.
It
Anyway,
is-
so back into the script here. Fortunately, several people on Rumble have been uploading the newer episodes of Shot in the Dark to Rumble for free.
Uh-oh.
And using a few different tools, I have downloaded them and ripped them to audio for the purpose of this show. Something I want to do on our website, which is free of charge and will not have a membership requirement because that's bullshit. I want to eventually host those full episode audio files along with the full files of these episodes. I don't plan on doing full transcripts of those, but I have no issue uploading show scripts eventually. Anyway, that's enough background. Let's move on.
Oh,
yeah.
Actually,
What's up?
Before we do move on,
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it'll get probably mentioned at a later date, but did fucking Alex Jones and his fucking website, he needed to get rid of his assets, right?
I have not kept up on any of that
Okay.
in a long time.
Because I was going to ask if our prediction of her buying it was...
That did not happen.
Damn it.
What did happen
Yeah.
was The Onion put in a winning bid to buy InfoWars and all of its assets. But the last time I checked in on that, Alex had been fighting them. Like, The Onion had it, and they had control of it, and then Alex started fighting them, and he got a judge involved, and it's been this whole big thing. The Sandy Hook families finally agreed to a settlement
Yeah.
to just end the whole thing. Once Trump got elected, they were like, well, if Trump steps in, we might not get anything, and he might not ever have to pay anything.
Yeah.
So as far as I know, the last time that I looked in on it, they had stepped back from taking, any kind of money. Mm-hmm. Well, not any kind of money. They had stepped back from pushing for $1.5 billion out of him.
Yeah.
And they had instead opted for a settlement. But to my knowledge, he still hasn't paid a dime towards the settlement.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the typical fuckery.
Yeah.
Candace did not get InfoWars, though.
Oh.
But her husband is worth tens of millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. She didn't need to get that, but I wouldn't have been shocked.
Yeah.
Although, had she gotten it, I would have gone back into the fucking subreddits that told me I was crazy for bringing up that idea and danced on their fucking graves. I would have gladly gone in there and done that, but I didn't get a chance, and I'm not going to be bitter about it. It just would have been fucking fun. So,
Back into things.
yeah. So she explained that this show was not the Parler originals. It was redone for the Daily Wire channel. Moving on, we get into the actual danger that someone like Candace represents, and the reason why I'm shocked no one has done a show quite like ours before. She does have some persuasive power. I wanted to toss this next clip, but listen with an open ear and you'll maybe understand why she has an audience like she does. There we go.
Mom to be, you're already a parent, you're expecting a second child. First and foremost, I want you to know that I, when it comes to politics, am an acquired taste. If you are somebody who disagrees with me politically, I don't care. I'm glad that you are here. This is not going to be political whatsoever. I think that what I do with A Shot in the Dark, which we are obviously going to get into, is without a doubt the most important work that I have ever done. It has been my most important contribution, I think, to the world because it concerns our children. And I have been transformed as a parent. I have been transformed by my experiences with vaccines and with Big Pharma. And this show is going to cover so much more than just vaccines and medicine. I want to eventually talk about food, all the decisions that we are making day in and day out. But it does begin, of course, with vaccines. A Shot in the Dark. If you are wondering what it was or how it got started, I really think it was God's timing, first and foremost, just to come right out with it. I do not vaccinate my children. I know that for some of you, that might seem insane. If you had asked me growing up about people that did not vaccinate their children, I would have said they are insane. The slur of calling somebody an anti-vaxxer has been tremendously effective throughout my lifetime, and I thought it was the crazy, crunchy people who wanted their children to die that didn't vaccinate their children. But obviously, as I said before, your life experiences transform you, and I had a life experience that transformed me in the form of me being vax injured. But how was this God's timing? Okay, well, I had my child and I had one of the COVID babies. My son, he's now 2 and a couple of months old, very healthy. And what really happened was during the time of COVID, it was unique because I think for the first time, individuals were willing to hear a different perspective on medicine, a different perspective on vaccines. And
Yeah, so a different perspective indeed. So this series is dated a little bit by the admission that her son, which is her oldest child now, was about 2 months old. And according to Candace, he is very healthy. This pushes up against territory that I'm not comfortable with when it regards her kids directly. I don't want to focus much on her kids. They're going to be minors for a long time. And growing up in her home, even if they are growing up with wealth, they're probably going to come out the other side all kinds of fucked up. So, until they are adults, or if they do some very egregious shit as older kids, we just have to take her word for it on whatever their health statuses are. That being said, Candace is a proven liar. So her children and their quality of life will remain in a sort of limbo as far as this show is concerned. But back to the clip, presenting any normal person with this, I could see how they might be compelled to give her a chance and listen to her story. Going on from that directly, we get more of her establishing what the focus of the episodes are going to be. This is a long one. Strap in.
I think a big reason for that was just the amount of censorship surrounding just the COVID vaccine that alerted a lot of people. For example, we were getting in trouble if we shared our lived experiences on social media. So what do I mean? Obviously, this is no longer, it doesn't seem to be a policy on Facebook, but if you had marched in and you were, I am definitely want to be the first person in line to get the vaccine, and that's totally fine if you were that person. But if you then got the vaccine and then went onto Facebook during this time of mass censorship and you said, oh man, I was sick for 3 days after it, I feel worse after getting the vaccine, your account could have been hit. Your account could have been frozen. Facebook had this unique policy at that time, but even if what you were sharing was true, if it created vaccine hesitancy, then they could take out your account. And I think for a lot of people, it just made them uncomfortable because you want people to be able to talk freely about their experiences. So I think the timing of me creating A Shot in the Dark, and again, it was not about COVID. We never discussed the COVID vaccine whatsoever. It was the perfect time. People, I think, were more receptive to the message. And the message really is that I am not going to try to convince you not to vaccinate your children. That is not what I am being tasked with. It is not what is in my heart or soul to do. What I want to give you instead is information. I want you to be able to, as a parent, not do something under duress, not do something because somebody is saying to you, if you don't, your children are going to die. That doesn't seem like a healthy relationship to have with anybody. I want you to be able to make an informed decision, to actually know what the risks were before they ever even came up with the vaccine, how many people were actually dying of this illness, and what the risks are today. How many people are becoming ill with this? How effective has the vaccine even been? And I think that's fair. I don't even understand how it could be plausible for an individual to say that parents don't have a right to that information, that parents should just blindly trust doctors and should blindly trust medical professionals. I want you to have enough information that you feel confident as a new parent or as an old parent talking to your pediatrician and saying, well, what about this? I see this information on the CDC website. And by the way, just to tell you right off the bat, I am not going to use shady sources throughout this process. You're not going to be, well, I found this on Reddit and I want to know what you think about this. I want to be above and beyond here. I want to use mainstream sources. I want to use CDC data. I want to take a look at the FDA inserts when I talk about what can happen if you give your child a vaccine. These are things that the pediatrician does not supply you, which should be astounding to you. You should think to yourself, you can't imagine people being able to give your child a snack and then saying, what's in the snack? What are the ingredients? And them saying, we're not allowed to actually tell you. Just eat the stuff.
Yeah, baby, here we go. So I hope that was instructive in how she builds up to a lie. That whole snack analogy at the end is fucking absurd. Parents have a wealth of information at hand about vaccines, and I have never known anyone that asked for information about vaccines being denied that info. Also, doctors are encouraged in Western medicine to answer patient questions about what they are prescribing, even if it's an established medicine like MMR vaccines or Tylenol 3. Major health systems have easy-to-navigate web portals that discuss everything anyone would need to know about medicines and procedures and anything else related. Next, we're getting into more familiar ground, but I'll let Candace say it in her own words.
You would say that makes no sense. So before I get into my background story with vaccines and what caused, I guess, my radical shift in my position, I also just want to talk about gut instincts, because I think it's really important that parents don't just ignore their subconscious. We're basically told just ignore your gut instincts, ignore that voice in your head that's saying this is wrong, wrong, wrong. No, your gut instinct when it comes to parenting is supreme. I think especially if you're a mom, I think God has designed us in a way where we are just so attached to our children and so plugged in that we, if you're like me, I know the octave of my child's cry. I know when he's actually hurt, when he's not really hurt, when he's playing it up, and when he just wants attention. God gave us that. We actually possess that instinct for a reason. So,
Okay, playing all the hits for us. Gut instinct. Now, I'm not going to say that intuition is wrong. I rely on mine often to do my job. But as a thinking and humble person, I also recognize when I need to trust an expert on a thing. I take cars to mechanics I trust. I pay for medical insurance because we need regular medical care for people in our home, and so on. But then there are times when I don't entirely trust a person and I seek out other help. Recently, I had to have a tooth pulled. My opinion of dentists isn't very good, since I have had several that clearly wanted to get as much as they could from my insurance providers, in spite of me sitting in the same room as they were discussing it. Fortunately, I only have 2 such stories, and I was not high on gas or anything at the time. But my trust level in dentists is very low as a result, and I don't visit a bad practitioner twice. Whether or not I give them a scathing Google review is another story. Anyway, it is actually a well-known facet of fascism to not trust actual experts in any field, but especially medical and social science when their views don't align with the fascist in question, which usually happens pretty often. Candace is just towing a very old line here, appealing to the crowd that would rather trust their gut instincts than actually learn anything about a medicine designed to help their child fight off horrible diseases. The next bit is something she has discussed before, but it bears hearing again.
So there were a couple of things to me, even before I decided I was fully against vaccines, that I registered as weird. First and foremost, if you know anything about my backstory, I did not grow up with any money. And if you are surrounded by people who don't have a lot of money, one thing that you will know that is true is that poor people always stick to the vaccine schedule. They 100% trust their doctors. I do not know a single person growing up in my environment that did not get vaccines. Something that was weird is that as my circles became wealthier, I was suddenly being exposed to more people that didn't vaccinate their children. That instantly registered to me as weird. And I'm talking about, I could name for you celebrities that do not vaccinate their children. Very wealthy, well-known celebrities who choose not to vaccinate their children. So just an instant question that I think I started asking myself is, why? If these are life-saving vaccines and people are going to die without them, why would somebody who has more education and more access to resources choose to opt out of this? Doesn't make sense. So that's just a simple gut instinct question that I started to ask myself, which I thought was quite odd.
So I looked into this, and she is right to a degree.
Yeah.
Several studies have been done on this phenomenon, and it's actually slightly interesting. Wealthy people in high-income countries like the USA, Britain, Singapore, and so on are often more vaccine hesitant than people further down the line. The reasons are fairly stupid across the board, too. Notice how Candace didn't get into the basic fact that it's snobbery that leads the reasons? Seriously, it's part of the God complex these persons tend to have that leads to them thinking they or their kids don't need vaccines. The ironic thing to me is that it really shows how disconnected they must be from the general population that just gets sick or is social enough to pass an illness around. A bunch of people working in an office or a kitchen or a store are in close enough proximity with each other or the general public to pass a cold around. But the managers and owners of such places will often have limited to no contact with the general public and will have little contact with the rank and file they've employed because in a good or bad work environment, they're busy dealing with other things. Everyone listening to this has probably had some district manager or company owner that swoops in occasionally to look and point at things in general and then leaves the place until they deign to show up again and make the direct managers shit themselves with fear. Such people, as they go up a ladder socially and monetarily, are less connected to reality and often see themselves as above vaccines. Same for their kids. Now let's let Candace continue.
Second thing is I realize that there are such unbelievably conflicting messages when you become a new parent, and I'm going to give you an example. We're not going to talk about DTaP today, but let's just talk about the ingredients that are in the DTaP shot very briefly, because I want to make a point. So this is from the CDC website, and it just tells you what's in the DTaP vaccine, and it says that there is a 0.5 milliliter dose, which contains 6.7 limit of flocculation, of diphtheria toxoid, and then it says that it contains tetanus toxoid and not more than 0.17 of a milligram of aluminum. It then says the residual formaldehyde content is a less than 0.02%, and the vaccine contains a trace amount of thimerosal. Now, guys, I want to also just say to you that as we go through these things, I am certain that I'm going to mispronounce ingredients and all of these words. It is totally fine. I don't want you to allow people to convince you that if you can't say these terms, that means you don't know what you're talking about. That is one of the things that I find to be increasingly annoying about Big Pharma. It's like, if you don't know how to pronounce this word, then you're no longer allowed to read it. And that is complete BS. It's okay to mispronounce words. We'll start getting it right as we get into this. So just look at those ingredients, you go, wow, that sounds like a lot. Is this really allowed am I allowed to inject this in my child's arm? They say it's trace amounts, no big deal. But a conflicting message here is that they also tell you while you're pregnant that everything you do, even a trace amount, could be harmful for your child. Case in point. The same CDC tells you that despite the fact that it is perfectly safe for you to give your child multiple vaccinations in one visit, which contain these aluminums, they also tell you that when you introduce your children to food, it should be just one at a time. So if you're giving your child organic food, I don't know, like peanuts, it just one at a time. You got to be very careful as you're introducing new foods in case your child has an allergy. Or my favorite is that when you're pregnant, God forbid, you have half a glass of wine. Oh my God, how good is that? You'd be poisoning your child. Formaldehyde, totally fine. Trace amounts, a little bit of wine, not okay.
Okay. So now I didn't write this part in, but it just came to me listening back to this one. She just excused mispronouncing these things.
Yeah.
Are you going to tell me that no one from her production staff, absolutely no one, herself included, thought it might be a good idea to phonetically write down the names of these things so that they would be easy for her to pronounce, to not sound like she doesn't know what she's talking about?
Yeah.
That's fucking stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Even on The Simpsons, Homer Simpson was put into a position of power in the nuclear power plant. I think it was there. And anyway, he had this secretary that was the bomb. Mm-hmm. And when Homer had to give speeches, the guy wrote the big words out phonetically so that Homer wouldn't sound like an idiot when he was talking to, like, business people. Yeah. It's fucking... God. Just... You know... Why? See, the production, she has all this fucking money. We are doing this on a shoestring. I have a fucking potato microphone that was like maybe $15 at Target, connected to my phone, running a $5 audio app. I'm doing all this shit on a tablet that I got for free with like monthly service, but I got it for free basically from our fucking telecom provider. I type everything out on a $10 folio keyboard case that I have Bluetooth to the tablet. The Bluetooth dongle that was like $5 plugged into the fucking tablet so that I can also have my mouse involved. And I use a fucking Linux computer magazine as my mouse pad because it's really comfortable. But like, this whole setup, my whole traveling fucking studio is less than $50 goddamn dollars. And I could have been like, yeah, look, Miss Owens, let me just write this out so you sound like you know what you're talking about. You know, like, fuck me. This fucking, they get the people they deserve. My God. Anyway.
The whole trace amounts of formaldehyde.
Oh, we're going to get into that.
Well, that, and then the God forbid you can't have half a glass of wine. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, well, wait, are you upset that you couldn't have half a glass of wine? And what kind of glass of wine are we talking about? Are we talking about the classy? Or are we talking about the rich white woman that's trying to forget about how dull her life is by the poolside while she watches the pool cleaner clean the pool and thinks, can I afford to cheat on my husband today?
Is her glass of wine a glass of wine or a bottle in the shape of a glass?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I imagine the way she acted so indignant about that, the way that always read to me was she was gonna have wine and someone ran over and slapped it out of her hand. Mm-hmm. That's what I imagine when she goes, God forbid, like, yeah, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So, what's in DTaP anyway? Well, we're going to stop her right there. The way she says it all, it can sound scary to new parents, but that's the idea. By providing these ingredients and skipping over the details, she is, of course, being dishonest by way of omission and obfuscation, which, as we've covered previously, she does very well. Anyway, she skipped over an ingredient in the read-through, and I don't know if any of you caught it. She read out diphtheria toxoid, tetanus toxoid, formaldehyde, and aluminum. She skipped over the acellular pertussis antigens, which would be the P in DTaP.
Yeah.
So, before we go on, let's discuss those items and then come into the pertussis that she skipped. Diphtheria toxoid is an inactive form of diphtheria. It's basically dead, but using it this way trains the immune system to recognize it and fight it. When it is injected as a vaccine, the body recognizes it as foreign and fights it, developing a memory for the thing. If you get exposed to diphtheria later in life, your immune system can recognize it before it causes harm. Diphtheria itself is a bacterial infection caused by Corynebacterium diphtheriae. Yeah. It affects primarily the upper respiratory tract of the nose, throat, and tonsils, but it can also infect the skin. It produces a toxin, damages tissues, and can lead to severe complications, including breathing problems, heart damage, such as myocarditis, nerve damage, and kidney failure. Diphtheria can be contracted multiple ways and is highly contagious. Tetanus toxoid, the T in that, is also an inactive form of tetanus. Tetanus is also known as lockjaw because it causes muscle stiffness, particularly in the jaw, but also difficulty swallowing, painful muscle spasms, fever, sweating, and increased heart rate. Severe cases of tetanus can cause breathing difficulties, fractures from extreme muscle spasms, and death. The one she skipped over, acellular pertussis antigen, is a purified... Let me let this cat back in. Jesus. Fucking flap on this door.
Yep.
What?
Oh, if we owned, I definitely would have already. Hi, Squeesh.
Okay, Kitty's going to sit with me. All right. So, acellular pertussis antigen is a purified piece of the Bordetella pertussis bacteria. This contains specific inactive proteins that trigger an immune response without including the entire bacterial cell. Now, Matthew here had this when he was a baby. It's known as whooping cough, and it's fucking scary to watch a kid have it. It starts with a runny nose, mild cough, and a low fever. It quickly develops into intense coughing, followed by a distinctive whooping sound, vomiting, and tiredness. It can cause apnea in infants. Me and his mom took shifts watching his breathing. It can take weeks or months to subside, and yes, we did take him to the hospital. He went on a ventilator for a while, but it wasn't an overnight stay or anything. Anyway, it can lead to pneumonia, seizures, brain inflammation, dehydration, rib fractures from severe coughing, and death. Imagine an infant getting brain damage and coughing themselves to death over the course of hours or weeks, breaking their ribs, stopping their breathing. Easily one of the scariest things a parent could go through, and she's just okay with kids being susceptible to it.
Oh, yeah.
So, how about those other ingredients? Well, let's start with aluminum. This is known as an adjuvant in the vaccine, and its primary use is actually pretty cool. Aluminum acts as an enhancer for the immune response, signaling to the system that there is indeed a foreign object present, but it also coats the antigen for pertussis in such a way that it drags out the immune response so that it has a longer time to work with and learn the information it needs to know to protect itself. Finally, because it does these functions, it helps to reduce the vaccine dose, keeping the quantity of inactive parts low so that the immune system can work with it effectively while reducing risk to the kid. The overall amount of aluminum is tiny. Excuse me, move my chair around here. Okay. The overall amount of aluminum is tiny and is much less than a kid would get in a jar of baby food, for example. These vaccines are done in several stages, and at no point are they all that large. Stabilizers in the vaccine are usually common ingredients such as sugar or sodium chloride, table salt.
Yeah.
These act as shipping and storage preservatives, and again, the amount needed is minuscule. Formaldehyde, which she mentioned, is present as a residual product in the vaccine to ensure that the main toxoids and the antigen remain active and safe. The formaldehyde preservative itself is far lower than what can be present naturally in many foods. It is considered safe at a level of 0.02% of the content of the vaccine shot. That is to say, it is 2% of 1% of the shot. Utterly meaningless in the grand scheme of protecting a child from serious diseases. But when listed out without explanation by someone like her in the way she does it, it can sound scary, especially to new parents that don't know how to look this shit up. Now, having gone through all of that, remember that she was comparing this at the end of the clip to drinking wine while pregnant, and how that is supposed to be bad for a fetus, but these shots sound far worse the way she tells it. So let's briefly cover the wine during pregnancy issue. There is no safe amount of booze of any type to consume during pregnancy, period. The alcohol does go to the fetus, which doesn't have the ability to fight the poison as a fully formed person does, and it can fuck a fetus's development up in all kinds of ways. The list of fetal alcohol spectrum disorders is massive. Booze is in no way similar at all to the DTaP vaccine. But let's let her go on.
Just to me registers as something that is a little weird. And again, I'm not advocating that women should go and drink wine or consume alcohol while they're pregnant. Of course, all of these things could have a downside, but it is strange that the messaging is that everything that you do could harm your child, but everything that we do, including injecting your child with formaldehyde and aluminums and other metals, is perfectly safe, and it could not possibly bring your child any harm, even though these same vaccine inserts are going to tell you the exact opposite when we get into the risks. So here's just essentially, I'm just jumping in here and showing you a different link of what I'm talking about. This is the CDC website saying that there is no known safe amount of alcohol use during pregnancy or while trying to get pregnant. There is no safe time for alcohol use during pregnancy. All types of alcohol are equally harmful, including all wines and beer. Okay, guys, so you have a beer, you're going to really harm your child. There's no known safe amounts. Metals, totally fine. So that's something that is odd. And I also want to just show you, back in 1962, these are the vaccine doses that were administered to children in the United States. So back in 1962, there were just 5 vaccine doses administered to children for polio, for smallpox, and for DTP. Fast forward to 1983, and you can see and look through this. Now you need more doses of DTP because I suppose it wears off. Now they've added MMR, they have TD, they have OPVs. And just to back that up quickly, I'm just going to show you, this is actually from the CDC. This is a chart of those doses that I just showed you that are supposed to be given to children. Okay, now let's jump to 2018. Now there are 72 doses that children are to receive. There's more today because I believe they've now added COVID. I'm not positive about that. I'm pretty sure they've added COVID and you need multiple COVID shots. At least they're trying to add COVID as a mandatory vaccine. 72 doses that are administered to children today. So I'm going to ask a question.
It's not 72, for the love of God.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had that many fucking doses in my memory.
Most people will never receive that many doses of a vaccine across their entire lives.
Yeah.
So this is a claim that Candace is fond of making, and it's absolutely bullshit. I first came across her 72 doses argument back when she was talking with one of those idiots in an interview, and she's like, and what do kids even need now? It went from like 40 to what, like 72? She is stuck on that fucking number. The actual number of vaccine doses, when added up, do not total 72. I'm going to list them off for the sake of transparency, and you guys can add them up if you want to use a calculator and follow along.
Yeah, might as well.
Okay, I'll give you all about 10 seconds to do this. Pause the show if you need longer. I also want to explain that for the purpose of argument, and to give even Candace some leeway, we'll be adding up the higher value of the available data, such as if a vaccine is 2 to 3 doses, then the higher number will be used.
All right.
Ready? Here we go. Hepatitis B, 3 doses. Rotavirus, 3 doses. DTaP, 5 doses. Tdap, which is basically the same thing, but is only 1 dose. You get the Tdap after the DTaP, because medicine is funny that way. Hemophilia influenza type B, 4 doses. Pneumococcal conjugate, 4 doses. Polio, 4 doses. Measles, mumps, and rubella, the MMR vaccine, 2 doses. Chickenpox, 2 doses. Hepatitis A, 2 doses. HPV, 2 doses. Okay. Even spelling this one out, I got it weird. Meningococcal conjugate for meningitis, 2 doses. Now, if you were following along, these numbers only add up to what?
34.
If we add COVID vaccines in here, add 2 more. So that's
36.
The only variable that I didn't include in here was annual flu shots, which from age 2 to 18 only adds another 16 doses.
52.
You will notice, of course, that the number is not 72.
No.
As for the vaccine numbers going up, of course, some things absolutely needed them, such as polio, measles, mumps, and rubella. Someone we know caught rubella as a baby and had to be kept in a dark room until it ran its course. Otherwise, they would have been blinded permanently.
Yeah.
They got the vaccine as soon as it was available, but their eyesight was also always required a high prescription of glasses as a result. The rubella vaccine absolutely savages people's eyesight. But hey, let's allow Candace to continue.
For those of you that are my age, maybe you're a little bit younger, do you feel that the children today are healthier than we were? I was born in 1989. When you look at the children today, these children that are receiving between 72 and 75 doses of vaccines, do you go, thank goodness for medicine because these children are so healthy? My answer to that is absolutely not. In fact, what I would say is that I have never thought that children were weaker or more pathetic in terms of their allergies. Kids seem to be allergic to everything, things that we couldn't even dream up when we were young. I babysat for a young girl. She had an egg allergy, she had a milk allergy, and she had a tree nut and a peanut allergy. When I dropped her off to her daycare, tree nuts and peanuts were banned because there were just way too many children that had these allergies. So they banned it entirely. You know this, some airlines, they ban peanuts because people have such bad allergies. When I was a child, I distinctly remember the name of the girl in our school who had a peanut allergy because it was so rare. I was like, what freak, why is she allergic to peanuts? Her name was Kamisha Bias, I'll never forget it. She had to step outside if anybody opened M&Ms, if anybody had a birthday party and there were nuts. She was so allergic, she had to step outside, and it actually serves as a vivid memory of me in elementary school and in middle school because it was so odd. Now it's so not odd that they're just banning it. They're just saying this is not even a safe thing. We're not even going to run the risk. Why? Why? How could that happen? There's also other things today that just...
Okay, so let's discuss allergies versus Candace. First off, fuck Candace for naming a private person like that. Mm-hmm. That was totally fucked up. And the fact that this kind of lasted, they didn't just bleep it out of the fucking recording.
Yeah.
Anyone in her editing team could have done that.
Mm-hmm.
And her name was, and I'm not going to fucking repeat it, I'm not getting called into that shit.
Yeah.
But, for her to go, and her name was, what should have followed that should have been either blank space or a clear bleeping out.
Yeah.
It should not have sat on fucking Rumble recordings.
No.
Up to this day. But from the top, allergies are more common today due to various factors. And we spoke about this on an earlier episode, but it boils down mostly to a lack of exposure in early childhood to things like peanuts and tree nuts, dairy, meats, and so on. One group on a whole that shows food allergies the most tends to be children or even adults that emigrate from areas with scarcity in any of those items to an area that has them in abundance. This is true globally. If you grow up in an area with low consumption of an item and move to an area where it can be gotten cheaply, such as milk, in most highly developed countries, dairy consumption might be a terrible idea for you if you haven't had steady access to it your entire life. Since you likely lack the gut bacteria to process it in the amounts that your neighbors enjoy. It has to be approached slowly, if at all, usually. And it was thought at one time that keeping kids away from peanut products would be a healthier option for them and would keep them from developing an allergy. It has the opposite effect. As for the allergies that Candace mentioned in the child she says she babysat for, egg allergies are actually the second most common food allergy. Cow's milk is the first most common food allergy and was recognized as an allergy decades ago. Soy-based infant formulas and soft foods have been available for a long time. Most children diagnosed with milk and egg allergies are about 50% by age 6 and about 70% by age 8 outgrow these allergies to milk and eggs. It is rarely forever. Peanut and tree nut allergies tend to be lifelong, but they only affect a maximum of 3% of the population. That number is on a slow rise, but it is very, very small. These are people that can go into shock around those ingredients. I once worked for a manager that kept a jar of peanut butter and a toothbrush, mouthwash, and toothpaste in his desk at work. His wife had an incredible allergy to peanuts, and when he would get a craving, he would eat as much as he needed, then brush his teeth vigorously after and once more before he went home. He wasn't trying to hide it from her. She knew when he arrived home smelling minty, but her allergy was that frightening. These things are serious for some folks, and of course Candace just dismisses it.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of, like at previous job, when I worked at the supermarket, I had to keep my uniform essentially lint rolled every time I came in because my specific boss was allergic to cats.
Yeah.
So, last thing I wanted to do was walking around, bump into, and then go, oh shit, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know.
I've just killed so-and-so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that kind of thing can happen. So, yeah, let's hear Candace's thoughts on the next bit.
Registered to me as very odd. One thing being that people are just struggling to have children. There are so many people that have fertility issues. And again, I'm not connecting this dot and saying that this is definitely from vaccines or it's definitely not. But it's something that's weird. You know, our grandparents had 9, 10, 11, 12. Quite literally, my grandfather was one of 12. And these people were certainly not getting vaccines. And you look today and people are struggling to have one child. They're having to turn to IVF. They're having to turn to more science. And they just can't figure out why. And I think that there are tons of things that we should be discussing. And one thing that is unique is this explosion of vaccinations that have been taking place.
Mortality rates. Okay. So the thing Candace would refuse to recognize, of course, regarding why families were larger in the past and people had kids easier, it would have seemed, was the opposite of all that shit she just said. By the year 1900, nearly 18% of children died before the age of 5. Nearly 18% of children died before the age of 5, with diseases like measles, pertussis, diphtheria, and typhoid being major causes of death after incredible suffering. Pertussis on its own took 3,530 babies per million births in the early 1900s in the USA alone. Large families often lost multiple children due to close quarters of families. Several children sleeping in a small room spread sickness easily. Accounts from historians have revealed that most families expected at least one death from disease. Declines in child death only happened after vaccines became widespread. As for birth rates, people have been having children later in life than their forebears, and teen rates of pregnancy are down because teens either don't engage in it or their parents are keen to get them knowledgeable about birth control, or the school system does its job. And this leads to less teen pregnancies. And also because teens' marriages are more rare, this also helps. Women are choosing to have children later in life than mothers may have in the past if they make that choice at all. This is all well known and has fuck all to do with vaccines running through their bodies. Candace herself didn't start having kids until she was married and 31 years old.
Yeah.
The only link I can see between vaccines and childbirth difficulties is women and men being healthy enough to get their lives in order before taking that risk of having kids. The next clip is 3 minutes long.
You know, there's a... Fuck, I think it's the movie Lucy. Is Morgan Freeman in that one?
Morgan Freeman's in that one, yeah.
Yeah, he gives this fucking seminar about life and evolution while, you know, Lucy's going through the whole having the blue drug shit activating her body, where he goes on about how when the environment is stable, life flourishes, breeding rates go down, and things remain calm.
Yeah.
Whereas when life is chaotic and hellish, things evolve faster, keep moving faster, reproduce faster.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's called things have slowed down.
We can even see that in like the immigrant families that come here, like Somalian couples that come to Minneapolis that, you know, that had a bunch of kids in the old country. They bring them here. Okay. But on the whole, their kids do not, you know, they're in a better environment. They're not in a literal fucking war zone, at least not currently. Knock on wood. You know, they're not in a literal fucking war zone. I'm going to let this cat out again. Jesus, girl. Any rate, you know, they're not in a literal fucking war zone. So their kids, and I've read, you know, social reports on this, their kids go to college, even the girls. Mm-hmm. You know, they may still wear the hijab, but they go to college, you know, get their lives together, they get an education. They maybe have 1 or 2 kids. Yeah. You know, they may have come from a family of 12, but maybe they don't even want children.
Yeah.
And their parents don't, maybe they push them for it, maybe they don't. I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody and said, hey, are your parents trying to get you to raw dog? That seems rude.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't do that. But,
I feel like that might get you behind bars these days.
That might get me into a fight. Who knows? That could get me places I don't want to be. But they tend to have smaller families.
Yeah.
And the ones that come over here that have just got married over there, or they get married when they arrive, they don't tend to produce a dozen kids. They don't tend to produce 4 kids.
Yeah.
They might have a couple because, they got to live in this world.
Yeah.
And unless you already have children, coming here and getting the help to support your family is a lot harder when people are like, well, there are 2 of you. We understand you having a child, maybe 2, but, please don't do more,
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. So yeah, here's the next clip.
I also want to just attack initially the official narrative, rather, that vaccines make us healthier, right? That is kind of the narrative. Vaccines make us healthier. You should get more and more and more. And every time there's a vaccine that becomes available, you should roll up your sleeve and you should get the shot. Something that you should know is that the United States, of every country in the entire world, administers the most vaccines. Okay? The United States administers the most vaccines. So if you follow that logic, then we should find that children in the United States are the healthiest, right? I want you to take a look at this chart. This chart, just to explain it to you, it's the OECD chart. The OECD stands for the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. It's a unique forum where the governments of 37 democracies, this is according to Google, with market-based economies collaborate to develop policy standards to promote sustainable economic growth. So the idea is these are other governments that are just like us that we can compare ourselves to. So when you say that you're making an OECD comparison, it means that you're looking at other countries that have a similar structure to ours, that have similar access to medicine as we would have, that are a form of this group. So take a look at this chart of OECD countries. And what this chart is comparing are infant mortality rates amongst these countries. And you can see when you look at the bottom that for infant mortality rates, the United States ranks number 36, behind countries like Croatia, Latvia, Hungary, Belgium, Austria, Greece, Israel, Korea, Spain, Czech Republic, Slovenia, Japan, Finland, Norway, Estonia, all countries which use way less vaccines than us. And it tells you at the top that the infant mortality rate is defined as the number of deaths of children under 1 year of age expressed per every 1,000 live births. Now, what's really interesting about this chart to me is that, just so you know, the United States gives the most money to all of this bureaucracy. And so they feel the need to qualify this. If you keep reading on, it says, some of the international variation in infant mortality rates is due to variations among countries in registering practices for premature infants. The United States and Canada are 2 countries which register a much higher proportion of babies weighing less than 500 grams with low odds of survival, resulting in higher reported infant mortality. I looked into this, and this is absolute BS. I could find only 2 countries where they were weighing the metric in a different way that would have impacted this. So I encourage you to look even deeper into this. But the idea that they even need to qualify this signals to me that they don't want people looking deeper into this. They're like, oh, it is kind of weird. The United States is not number 1 here, but don't pay attention to this because the United States is kind of controlling the OECD data, and we want you to know that it's not a big deal that our infants are registering 36 behind all of these countries. So I'm going to put all this information up, guys. I want you to be able to access it and to assess it yourself, and you can go through each and every one of these countries and determine how they register live births.
Okay, the OECD data proves Candace wrong. So here we go again. The USA does not administer the most vaccines. Not even close to China. Which, because they have a much higher population, China does the most.
Yeah.
America has a larger population than most countries, but China delivers more vaccines to people, more than any other country. But moving on from that, the USA is actually at 33 currently in the OECD data. In the study, it doesn't attempt to pull punches on why American mortality rates are giving us the low ranking. It lists a lot of factors that are a part of our culture, such as Number 1, preterm births and low birth weights. These can be caused by any number of factors, but it's usually tied to mothers not getting proper nutrition during pregnancy. Number 2, healthcare disparities from social inequality. I feel like that says enough on its own. Number 3, high rates of sudden infant death syndrome and unintentional injuries, which is, tragic. Number 4, insufficient maternity care due to a shortage of maternity care providers, including midwives. We have less here of the entire spectrum than other countries do. Number 5, postpartum care and parental leave. The USA has less postpartum care and leave than other countries do, and every time a state tries to make it a thing, it causes an uproar among Republicans, but also neo-lib Democrats. Such as, here in Minnesota, they did do a paid parental leave thing. Mm-hmm. And people on both sides of the aisle, but mostly the Republicans, bitched and moaned. Now, in other states when this happens, the Democrats will also bitch and moan on behalf of business interests who don't want to pay, for parental leave. So you have to, write it into fucking law.
Yeah.
And these same fucking assholes, like Candace, these same fucking assholes will go and, talk up, like she mentioned Norway in there.
Yeah.
You know what happens in fucking Norway when you have a baby? For one, you don't pay shit.
Yeah.
The average Norwegian spends $2,000 a year. Literally, they write a check for $2,000 to the government that pays their entire healthcare bill for the year.
Yeah.
Now, if you happen to live in Oslo or Trondheim, the larger cities there's at least another 2 that I'm blanking on the names of right now. But if you live in these cities, you're going to get access to high quality, adequate care, more so in Oslo than other places, just because it's the capital.
Yeah.
And if you live further out, you'll have access to a town clinic, but you may have to drive a few hours to Oslo to get, your cancer looked at.
Yeah.
But when it comes to giving birth, I used to listen to the podcast Life in Norway. It was done by a British guy, and I think I've mentioned it on this show before. It may still be running. I'm not sure. Anyway, I haven't checked in on it in a long time. But he had people on there that they were foreigners that had married Norwegians. And they got their Norwegian citizenship, most of them. And anyway, they were shocked. The most common story among these people was they were shocked when either they themselves were giving birth or they were with their partner that was, and they had paid their healthcare bill for the year. They came from countries like America and shit. They paid their healthcare bill for the year. So the only bill they paid upon leaving the hospital was the meal cost for the partner.
Yeah.
Their partners, they stayed for a week in the hospital.
Yeah.
To make sure that mom and baby were perfectly fine. They got a week-long stay in the hospital for the mother and the infant. The father, or if it's, a lesbian IVF couple or whatever, the other partner gets to stay in a hotel attached to the hospital.
Yeah.
Free of charge. Mm-hmm. Then they get 6 months parental leave. And one lady, I don't remember which country she had come from, but she had gotten pregnant. And, she was afraid to tell her boss because she had just gotten hired at her job. Mm-hmm. She was afraid to tell her boss, but when she finally did, she couldn't hide it anymore.
Yeah.
He said, oh, well, I wish you had told me sooner. We would have, set aside time for you to go to your doctor's appointments and things. And then she explained, in America, this would have gotten her fired or gotten her hours reduced or whatever. And he's like, you're not there anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're not there anymore. You're here. Be here now. And so what had happened was, she was again, she still had American mind when it was time for her to really consider going into labor and everything. And, and she told her boss, and he's like, don't worry, your job's going to be here when you're done. You take your parental leave. Don't feel guilty about any of this. You're still going to get paid. Mm-hmm. Your job's going to be here when you're done. We will call in a temp if we have to, but otherwise we can pick up the slack. That's what we do. And, and she was still shocked when she was able to go right back into her job after taking the necessary parental leave with her youngin'. And the kids, they go off to kindergarten at age 1.
Yeah.
And kindergarten for them is like fucking field trips and shit. Mm-hmm. And the kindergarten teachers don't replace their parents in any kind of way. The parents are encouraged to have family work-life balance. They're encouraged to get their kids. People leave work early on Fridays as a regular thing to go get their kids from school. Like if you have a 9 to 5 normally, your day in Norway, if you have kids, can be 9 to 3. No one's going to bat an eye or give a shit. No one's going to bug you over the weekend about your fucking emails. Mm-hmm. The work's going to be there when you return on Monday.
Yeah.
And that's something that Norwegian employers have talked about is hard to drill through to people from other countries, but especially Americans that come to work for them. They're like, oh, look, man, I'm sorry. Like, I'll get this done over the weekend. Just life got weird. Shit got backed up. And they always have to calm them down and be like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Do not work on this in your time. Mm-hmm. If you're not here, go live.
Yeah.
When you come back on Monday, if we can spare the manpower, we will split these tasks up. And American managers that go to Norway, especially people the higher level they are of like in the executive suite, mm-hmm. the more they fucking hate working in Norway. Because Norwegians, they'll try to like do things like email somebody over the weekend and they'll be lucky if they get like a response back, like an auto response, like, thank you for trying to reach out to me, but this is my weekend. I'll respond on Monday. like they have their shit set, or like they go on vacation and they don't check their phone or they don't respond to anything, mm-hmm. and they come back and they're like, where were you? I was trying to get a hold of you. And they're like, I was on vacation. You've known about this for months. Why would you try to reach out to me? Of course I blocked you. I blocked everybody from this office. Well, so-and-so picked up the slack. Good, I'll go thank them, and you should too. They can't drill it through their heads. And it's like, yeah, like, Norway has its issues, it has its problems, of course, but that way of doing things, they will scream about how Norway has all of this shit figured out and how they have all of these other great things. It's like, and it's because they have a different system.
Yeah.
If you want to adapt the Nordic system, I will clasp hands with you and run through a fucking field. Like I would in theory be fine with that. I don't like the high rate of taxes that they have there, but I will pay those to know that I can die in a bed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is something that, the current job setup, they definitely do that sort of thing because, went on my little mini vacation and I got back and I go, hey, I don't know if y'all have tried to reach out to me, but basically everybody from here that isn't a close friend, I ignored. So anything important happened in the past 2 weeks? And they're like, did you look at your emails? Fuck no. I haven't thought about work until I woke up this morning.
Right? Nothing. Like, if this store burned down, I would just come back to the husk and be like, well, shit, I should call somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, come on, man. Like, what the fuck? But yeah, they, like I said, these people will this tends to be the same crowd. These fucking Nazis tend to be the same crowd that will call themselves Odinists and shit. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what do you know about Odin?
Yeah.
Go ahead and talk to me. I want to hear it from you. Tell me what you know, And yeah, like, Marvel Comics doesn't count. You can't use that. You tell me what you know about Odin and Nordic history. Go for it. I'm going to shut up now. You just talk. They got fuck all. They got fucking fuck all. Mm-hmm. But, yeah. So,
Shit, they probably don't even know about Marvel Comics for Pete's
Oh,
sake.
no, they do. Marvel's unavoidable. Come on.
They
They might not like the depictions in Marvel Comics, but they don't know the true history.
either. So,
Yeah, even though the USA leads the world in healthcare spending, all of the factors that I mentioned play a heavy role in why our infant mortality sucks, and it's all in the OECD. All of it. But as usual, Candace is full of it because she knows her audience, if they go looking for it, will only seek out confirmation bias, which is disgusting. But let's let her go on. What follows is Candace's version of her experience with the Gardasil vaccine.
Oh.
Yeah.
That big pharma is banking on you not having the time to do, make the time. It is very telling that America is ranked so lowly in terms of health and in terms of infant mortality. All right, so now I want to jump into my personal story. I call this my personal shot in the dark because it is what has set me on this path, and it is something that when it happened to me, it was, why, God, why?
What's up?
Her personal shot in the dark because that's as close to the truth as it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I hate that I didn't see this before today.
Yeah.
Before we started, but it occurred to me. The whole thing of a shot in the dark could be taken in the most racial of circumstances. Because she's a black woman.
Yeah.
And she's getting a shot.
Mm-hmm. It's not connecting for me.
You know, a shot in the dark, referring to her skin tone.
Okay.
I'm not trying to make that. I'm not trying to make that joke. I can't believe I didn't think of it until now. But it's there, and I'm like, my God, was the title of this chucklingly dreamed up by one of her people or even herself as like a joke, and then it just took off and someone was like, oh fuck, I hope no one catches on, like I don't know
Like one of her people just sent in an email just like, oh, we could call it a shot in the dark.
Yeah, we could call it a shot in the dark, and we could like put some marketing behind it, and I mean, who the fuck knows? But man, I hate that it's there because it's not, it's, if you're giving people information,
Yeah.
it's no longer the dark.
No. Well, that was something.
But I would argue she's not giving people information.
Yeah.
But she's telling them not to get shots.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I mean, it's not a great title. There's no world in which this is a great title where this fucking works.
I was gonna say, isn't a shot in the dark fucking like somebody will tell you something outrageous and you just go, man, that's a shot in the dark.
Yeah, like it's like it's something that could not possibly happen. The cat is trying to get in here again.
Yep.
Yeah, let her in.
Different cat this time.
Is it?
Yep.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, it's the other one.
Yeah. No. The other one will just punch down the door.
Well, she certainly tried earlier.
Oh, yeah.
These girls just cannot figure themselves out. Okay, but let's hear the rest of the clip. Man.
And now I see it is because I've been given this platform to share this story and to inspire a lot of women to share their stories. I've actually never seen more women respond than when I talk about the Gardasil shot, which is one of the vaccines that was administered to me when I was about 19 or 20 years old, and the vaccine that I was injured from. This was my big wake-up call. So I'll give you the background story. Again, I was 19 and 20 years old when there suddenly was this really big push for women to get...
Can I just point out one thing? This life-changing fucking event happened when she was 19 or 20 years old? How the fuck do you not know?
Yeah.
That being said, I even allowed for that range. I allowed for her to be 18 to 21 when I was looking for the info on the Bears site.
Fuck. Yeah.
The cat just rubbing all up on his face.
Yep.
Anyway.
But
yeah.
the only excuse that I could possibly give her would be memory loss from the seizures that she supposedly had in response to it.
At the same time.
There's medical record that would have...
Yeah. Yeah, like how do you not know, oh, well, it was then, so I wasn't quite 20 yet, I was 19. Or my birthday had come and gone and I was 20.
Yeah.
It's not that fucking hard.
Yeah, no.
Like, I am blessed with having my birthday late in the year. Mm-hmm. Because up until a certain point, I'm younger than the year I'm in. I'm a year younger than the year I'm in. But that being said, when people ask me my age, if they don't know me and I don't know them, I add 10 years to my age. You know why?
Why?
Because, like, I'm 44 currently, right?
Yeah.
But if someone asks me, some jackass I've never met before, hey man, how old are you? I'm 54. Damn, you look good for your age. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know, see, for me, you know...
That's an easy lie that harms no one. It harms no one. And, you know, I feel good about it because I get a momentary little boost of, well, thank you.
See, for me, every time somebody looks at me and goes, oh, you've got to be 25 or 26, I go, no, I'm fucking 20.
You're right.
And they're like, oh, you look, you look older. And I'm like, what are you saying I look fucking wrinkly or something? Like,
No,
what?
no, you don't. No, just trust me. Just
the mock offense makes them all like super defensive, and then I go, nah, you're good, man. I get it all the time.
No, like maybe you should try doing that.
Oh God.
Add 10 years to it. Be like, I mean, like, how old are you? 25? I'm 30, but thank you. I would love to have been 25 again.
Just add 10 years.
Add 10 years and be like, thank you. I'm actually 30. Yeah. It makes them feel, I don't know. I'm not one of those age guessing people. I never walk up to anybody like, okay, the only time I ever felt like I had to card somebody was, I was waiting tables at this restaurant way back in Jacksonville, like before you were born. Mm-hmm. I'm waiting tables at this place. It was called the American Cafe. It was at the Landing. It was right above Hooters. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I'm there, and you know I'm doing my thing, and there's this table of like about 15 teenagers and a couple of like adult chaperones that come in, and all of the obvious girls ordered like sodas and tea and whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Then I get down to the last one. I've done the adults, and I get down to the last one, and she orders a strawberry daiquiri, a real one.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna have to see your ID. Mm-hmm. And the other girls started laughing, and I was like, what? They're like, she's our coach. And I was like, okay, but I still got to see your ID because I'm sorry, ma'am, you look a lot like these ones here. And she goes, oh, no, that's fine. It's actually kind of flattering. And she pulls it out, and she's like 26 years old.
Jesus.
Looked every bit of like maybe 18. And I was like, all right. Okay, cool. Cool. I believe you. You know, I'm not going to run it through a black light or anything. I'll get your damn drink. Not a problem.
When it comes down to the people up here being age guessers, I only understand that because I have talked to a varying spectrum of people before who are like, oh yeah, no, I'm in my 30s. Fucking what? Yeah. What the fuck do you mean you're in your 30s?
Yeah.
I'm not even trying to be flattering here. You look like you're 20. What the fuck?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of youngish looking people here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and then some very old looking people that are way younger than you'd assume them to be.
Right. Like life was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. Let's continue going with this clip.
The Gardasil vaccine, which was a 3-part series. And I'm going to show you an old commercial from that time because the message that was being delivered was that if you wanted to avoid getting cancer, you would get this vaccine. Like one way that you could mark yourself safe from cervical cancer was to get the Gardasil vaccine. Here is one such commercial from back then.
Each year in the U.S., thousands of women learn they have cervical cancer. I could be one less. One less statistic. One less. Because now there's Gardasil, the only vaccine that may help protect you from the 4 types of human papillomavirus that may cause 70% of cervical cancer.
So I saw these commercials, obviously, like every other young woman, and I fully trusted my doctors, just like every other young woman. And I went to my gynecologist and for my annual exam, and he said, there's a new vaccine and you absolutely have to get it. And I said, what is it? He said, Gardasil. It's good. It's going to prevent you from getting cancer down the line. Now that I'm older, what a strange thing. We don't have a cure to cancer. Why would I believe that we have something that can just a shot that could prevent you from getting cancer? Now it presents so many red flags, but at the time I was young and I was dumb. And just so you guys know, the Gardasil shot was approved back in 2006. So again, I think I was about 19 years old when this happened. So anyways, I rolled up my sleeve to get the first shot, and immediately after he administered it, I hit the ground and I passed out, which I never pass out. I am not a person that faints. I am not a person that is queasy. So this was very out of the norm for me personally. And when I came to, what he essentially said to me was, did you eat breakfast this morning? And I said, well, no, I didn't eat breakfast. He said, well, that's why you passed out. It's okay. Not a big deal, but you should make sure before you get the second shot that you eat breakfast. So I was a little spooked. They sat me down, gave me some water. I left thereafter, but he had given me what I assumed was a valid reason for this happening. I obviously hadn't eaten breakfast that morning. Went back to get my second shot and made sure that I ate breakfast that morning.
Okay, so we covered at the top of this episode that I could find no incidents like Candace talks about here in the VAERS database. Had this happened, her doctor would have been required to report it at the time. I am inclined, because I do this, to not believe anything she says ever, but especially this. For one thing, fainting is a known side effect of any vaccine, not just this one. 2, patients are supposed to stay seated or lying down for up to 15 minutes after any vaccine. The known side effects following a Gardasil shot are similar to other vaccines, such as injection site reactions, headache, fever, and so on. I do not believe that this happened to her. I believe she took someone else's story and ran with it, changing details to suit herself and made it a part of her story. She talks about going back for her second shot.
And when I sat down, I just thought there was no plausibility that I was going to pass out. The nurse came in, she gave me the injection, and this time my reaction was much more severe. Not only did I pass out, and I remember this moment especially horrifically because she had asked me to disrobe because afterwards I was going to have an exam. So I was essentially just wearing a shirt and one of those little pieces of paper, to cover your parts. And I had passed out, fallen off of the chair, or the table rather, that I was on. And when I came to, I began having what can only be described as a mini seizure. I began shaking and then I began vomiting profusely. The 2 gynecologists came flying down the hallway. I had the nurse in there. They were all over me trying to take care of me. And I just, even as I'm recapping this to you, I just remember how absolutely traumatized and scared I was, not knowing what was happening to my body, not knowing why I was vomiting, not knowing why I was shaking. I've never had these things happen to me ever before in my life. And it was very obvious that my gynecologists were spooked. And when they got me up and got me into the chair, and you can imagine how mortifying this is, this happened to have been 2 male gynecologists that ran this particular firm, and I'm completely naked having a seizure. I mean, from the bottom down, completely naked having a seizure. And he said to me right away that you should discontinue this series. You should not get the 3rd one. This is a reaction that you should not be having to this. I remember just crying hysterically. I was just so scared. When something happens to you medically that's never happened to you medically, it's like an out-of-body experience. And I was traumatized leaving the office. They obviously waited until I was good enough, gave me water, sat me down for a long time, kept asking me if I was okay. I said I was fine and I left. The reason...
She tells it well. But again, something this traumatic would have been reported. And I checked the VAERS data for a range of years in both Rhode Island and Connecticut. Another consideration here is that Gardasil is given in either 2 or 3 doses. For 2 doses, The second dose is given 6 to 12 months after the first dose. For 3 doses, the second dose would have been given less than 5 months after the first dose, and then the third dose would be required at least 4 months later. So this is a really tight time frame if the third dose was ever going to be in the picture. I contend that she is lying. She does it well, but that is why we do this show.
Not to mention, she mentions, how you can't trust doctors or anything like that. But from what it sounds like in her lie there, the doctors did exactly what they were supposed to do in that situation, which was secure the patient, make sure the patient's okay, and don't let the patient leave until there's obvious signs that they aren't going to, step outside, have the sunlight hit them, and drop over with another seizure. On top of that, they told her not to come back in for her third one because this is a reaction they haven't seen from it before.
Yeah.
And clearly, she shouldn't be given a third one if this was her second dose.
Yeah.
So, even if it was true, the doctors weren't like, oh, well, you need to get your third one still. They were like, okay, we're not doing this again.
Yeah.
Because clearly, this is far worse for you.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that I hadn't even thought of, so thank you. But, because I'm so deep in the weeds on this shit. But, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, you're right. The doctors clearly did the doctoring.
Yeah.
And I looked it up. A nurse could have given her the vaccine. That's totally normal.
I mean, a nurse was the one that injected my...
all of your vaccines.
Yeah, did the 3 and the 4.
Yeah.
God. That was a... The 3 and the 4 and then the 3 and then the 1.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
Yeah.
God.
And then, the 2 COVIDs. Boom, boom.
Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah.
that was fun catching up on a decade's worth of missed vaccines.
Yeah, well, see, that's the benefit, right, of, I mean, we took you out of school for all kinds of crazy reasons because Florida, y'all. But... yeah, see, that was the advantage, really, of school, was keeping people on a vaccine schedule, reminding parents, hey, make sure your kid does this, or just having them available at the school health clinic,
Yeah, I mean, shit, most of my early years ones, while they were recorded and sent off to the same place that we always went to for my pediatric care, they were still, administered by the nurses and doctors that were at that one because that was the town pediatric.
Yeah.
And, they fucking were the ones injecting us when we were at school.
Yeah.
And it was actually kind of fun to be injected at school because you'd sit there, you'd go in, they'd do the thing, they'd give you a fucking lollipop, you'd go have lunch afterwards. And the best part about it, it was always pizza day.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love eating a fucking fresh slice after getting injected? Granted, it was a fresh slice from Little Caesars, but still...
Hey, come on now.
It was a fresh slice.
Don't shit on the C's. Don't shit on the C's. They keep people fed for cheap.
Yeah.
That said, Black Sheep Pizza here, fucking light year better.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. If you're ever in Minneapolis, folks, there's 2 locations for Black Sheep coal-fired pizza. This is an unpaid plug. Fucking blow them up. Those people deserve every dime they get. Oh my God. That meatball pizza.
Let's just clarify here. Not with explosives.
Nah, with money.
With money and publicity.
Yeah, just give them all the funds. They deserve it all. Okay, so let's move on to the next one.
Residual, I guess the residual drama that took place, I didn't feel like myself for years after getting that second installment of the Gardasil shot. I had a fatigue that I can't even describe to you that lasted for years. I felt like my brain didn't work the same since getting that vaccine. I know that I have shared the story before, and so many women have written into me. This really seems to be the one vaccine that so many women have had reaction.
What's up?
Is she claiming that she got temporary tism?
No, but that would be nice.
Okay. Because,
She's claiming that her brain didn't work well for years. I'm going to get into more of that.
okay.
Yeah.
Because,
So keep in mind, she's mentioned brain fog lasting for years.
yeah. Okay.
You know, didn't feel right.
Too. It's stunning to me that it's still on the market. I've had people say that they were very shortly thereafter diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, all sorts of stories. You'll obviously see them in the comments today of people that were similarly impacted by this vaccine, people that similarly had seizures after getting this vaccine, and now this vaccine comes with some very severe warnings. You can imagine me going through this process really alone and crying as I was sitting in my car about to drive home and asking myself, what did I just put into my body? Actually, more to the point question was, why did I just put this into my body? I don't even know what it was that I just put into my body, and I don't know why I put it into my body. Why would I just blanket trust a doctor? I passed out the first time. That should have been the first, hello, Candace, maybe not for you. And now I've had what amounts to a mini seizure in an office, and I'm sitting here and I realize I don't know what was even put into my body. I don't even know what it was that I was reacting to. And then I began to conduct some research, and what I discovered astonished me, and I think it is going to astonish you as well.
You see, that right there is another layer of bullshit. Because you remember when we went to... I think we were still... No, it was after we came up here.
Okay.
I had a bad respiratory infection just from the, whatever the fuck in the air up here compared to Florida.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go to the doctor's office, all that jazz.
Yeah.
When we went down, the cough medicine that they were prescribing me, the bubble gum flavored, I fucking love that prescription level shit.
Yeah.
Because it just tastes so damn good.
It does.
They were sitting there and they said, we have one slight thing. The cough medication that we're going to prescribe to you, we see it's been prescribed before, but also one of its ingredients is what creates Dramamine. Dramamine, which you are shown as allergic to.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And they said, yeah, what is your allergy to that? Because it's not listed, it's just listed as a red flag for you. And I said, well, slow, very peaceful sleep that results in permanent sleep.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. Did you discover this allergy before or after taking this cough medication? And I said, before. And the first time I took it, it wasn't flagged, And they said, well, are you comfortable with taking it? And I said, well, it didn't kill me the first time, so yeah.
Yeah.
But that right there is the whole thing of, if this fucking happened to her, she should be able to, even if it's a few years later, go to a doctor's office and go, hey, what was in X thing that gave me a seizure? Like, what are the ingredients in that?
Right.
And what, is likely to have caused it? Because they root out that sort of shit. Even if it's 1% of the fucking population that takes a medication and has a violent reaction to it, they document that shit and go, okay, well, what specifically in this caused that? Can we afford to remove it? No? Okay, let's just warn people about that then.
Yeah. I mean, most of what she just said are not, in fact, side effects of Gardasil.
Yeah.
Type 1 diabetes onset has been mentioned in lawsuits, but no causal relationship has been shown. And that goes for her other claims of brain fog and other cognitive issues, depression, and so on. The known and listed side effects of Gardasil are basically the same as any other vaccine, such as injection site reactions like redness, itch, or swelling, and things such as headache or vomiting. Gardasil does have a higher incidence of fainting after injection, but that's about it, in comparison to other vaccines. Let's allow her to continue.
So as I said, the Gardasil vaccine was approved back in 2006. So what I want you to pay attention to is 2005, right? What led us to this moment of them suddenly saying that we need to do this push and we need to make people fearful to get this vaccine? And what better way to make people fearful than to use the word cancer? cancer is something that terrifies us all. We all think about cancer. We see commercials with people that have cancer. We know people that have suffered from cancer, and we know how horrific cancer is. And if you use a phrase like this is going to prevent you from getting cancer, you are obviously going to inspire people to act out of fear. So I want to take a look for you. I want you guys to take a look rather with me at what the cervical cancer rates were in 2005 in the United States before they rolled out the Gardasil exam. So first and foremost, it's important to note that the female population in the United States in 2005 was 149.9 million. Okay, that's an approximate 149.9 million females that were living in the United States. Of the 149.9 million females in the United States, there were just 10,370 cases of cervical cancer, okay, before the rollout of Gardasil. So I've done the math for you. You can fact check this math for you. That means that if you were a female living in the United States in 2005, you had just a 0.0069% chance of being diagnosed with cervical cancer before they rolled out this preventative vaccine. So you are seeing, by the way, a chart that we are sharing. This chart can be found on the American Cancer Society's website. Again, we are not going to use any shady sources for the amount of cases of cervical cancer from 2005 before they ever rolled out this vaccine.
So, wait, hold up. They aren't using the amount of cases of cervical cancer as part of the numbers that they are trying to show to prove that Gardasil wasn't a necessary thing.
Oh, I'm getting into that. I'm getting into that right here.
Okay. Sorry, just that.
No, you're right to jump on it. You're absolutely right to jump on it. So the actual numbers from the same sources are actually 8.8 cases per 100,000 women. After the introduction of the vaccine, the cases dropped from 8.8 to 7.9 cases per 100,000 women over the next 5 years.
Okay.
Now, the latest data shows that this has gone down to 7.3 women per 100,000 per year in the USA. So we went from 8.8 to 7.3.
Okay.
This lower number is likely a direct result of vaccine acceptance.
Yeah.
Since the leading cause of cervical cancer is HPV, human papillomavirus, in about 99% of all cases. They can draw the link in 99% of cases of cervical cancer back to someone having HPV.
Okay.
Now, this is actually more impressive as the population of women has increased by 20 million since the vaccine was introduced. So, had we been working with the same number of 149 million on average, had we been working with that same number, it is likely that the vaccine would have been more effective.
Yeah.
But since there's more women and vaccine acceptance rate is not that high because Gardasil is totally optional.
Yeah.
It's not in that list of vaccines we went through earlier.
Yeah.
Gardasil is totally fucking optional. That number could be lower than it is. This is one of those things that could actually, if it were more widely adopted, wipe out a cancer.
Okay.
You know, and that's the thing, is that it's very hard to get people on that thing.
Yeah, on that train.
Yeah. But Candace will get more into that.
Now, they've essentially decided, Big Pharma all by itself, that this vaccine is so successful that they have now not just said it's for women, it's now for men. So if you're watching this now, you're like, what are you talking about, cancer? What do you mean just for women with cervical cancer? Men are getting this vaccine too. Yeah, eventually they decided to extend it to men, which was confusing to me because, again, that big push, which you just saw in the commercial, was all about women preventing themselves from cervical cancer. So how did they magically realize this formula was also going to help men if a man does not have a cervix? It's very confusing to me. It doesn't matter. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. So just trust them. So what they say to men is that this could prevent you from getting penile cancer. which is it's just not even on the map of cancers that men can get. I mean, I will get into that later, but just know that they have now extended this to men. So that must mean that it was such a astounding success for the female population that they said, men, you should get this as well. So let's fact check how successful the Gardasil shot was for females. So these numbers are from 2022. In 2022, there were 167.5 million females living in the United States, okay? Of the 167.5 million females living in the United States, there were 14,100 cases of cervical cancer. Now, the math on that means that if you were in a female in the United States, and this is after almost 20 years of having, almost 2 decades of having this wonderful vaccine to prevent from cervical cancer, your chances of getting cervical cancer today are 0.0084%. That's weird because that means that cervical cancer rates have gone slightly up in the United States since the rollout of the Gardasil vaccine. How does that make sense?
Nope. Okay, so first, men absolutely can get penile cancer. That is a thing. Merck, the company that makes Gardasil, would absolutely want to find case studies where it could help men who also get HPV and male-centric cancers, such as penile cancer. It also protects against anal and oropharyngeal cancer, which are directly linked to high-risk HPV strains. HPV, like most things that live, isn't just one type of thing. There are different versions of it that have mutated and have different characteristics. Vaccinating men against HPV helps keep them from spreading it to partners unknowingly, as they may not be aware if they even have it. If both people are vaxxed, that's a win, probably. Oropharyngeal cancer, in case anyone was curious, is a type of head and neck cancer that develops in the middle part of the throat behind the mouth. This area includes the base of the tongue, tonsils, soft palate, and side walls of the throat. The most common type is known as squamous cell carcinoma. HPV 16 is a leading cause of this cancer and accounts for 60 to 70% of the cases of it in the U.S. Penile cancer is rare in America, occurring in only about 1% of cancer cases in the U.S. However, this may be due to the higher incidence of circumcision here. In other countries, such as parts of Asia, Africa, and South America, foreskin smegma buildup is a known cause as a result of poor hygiene, but it can occur on circumcised males as well. The real risk is HPV transmission between men and sexual partners. Women or men at that point, it doesn't matter. Going further, of course, Candace is wrong that the cases of cervical cancer have increased since the introduction of the vaccine, as we've already discussed. Gardasil is only mandatory as a school student vaccine in 4 U.S. areas: Rhode Island, Virginia, D.C., and Puerto Rico. But these mandates include opt-out provisions. No colleges in Rhode Island have ever mandated Gardasil, so she can't use that as an excuse. She hasn't. I'm just getting ahead of it. Anyway, no one is really required to take this vaccine. It isn't like measles or polio. But, in spite of Gardasil being voluntary, you can draw a direct link between vaccine acceptance rates and the lowering of HPV cancers in the U.S. and other countries. Keep in mind what I just said as we get into this next clip.
By what metric are they determining that this Gardasil vaccine, which has injured so many women, myself included, should not be discontinued and rather should be extended to the entire male population? If you think that's shady, that they've extended it to the male population because now they've decided that it can help with penile cancer and all sorts of cancers, then you're going to find it even stranger that they're now mandating the shot. The HPV shot, they are mandating it in Rhode Island, in D.C., in Puerto Rico, in Virginia, and then, by the way, just in D.C. and Virginia, it's for girls only, and parents can only opt out if they have a religious or a moral belief
All of that's
against
bullshit.
it. But in New York, this is where it gets absolutely insane. They attempted to pass a bill in 2019 to require that all children have to have the Gardasil vaccine to enter any school, including daycare. To say that that infuriates me would be the greatest understatement because of how I suffered that vaccine. When you are injured from a vaccine and then you learn that they are trying to give this vaccine to toddlers, it is a kind of evil that I can't even put into words. When I know that just amongst my friends, how many people have had a bad reaction to Gardasil. Some people didn't. My sister didn't, by the way, as one example. But to think that they would, with, again, no metric of success that they can point to, demand that children get this vaccine drives me insane. It drives me up a wall. Now, let's also be clear that it doesn't say that this is going to prevent all cervical cancers. They're talking specifically about HPV, right? HPV is an STD that they claim can lead to cervical cancer, right? And this vaccine is a vaccine against HPV, a sexually transmitted disease. So I'm going...
More lies. So, HPV does spread by means other than sexual, such as skin-to-skin contact, touching infected areas or warts. Anyone that has ever been around a child for 10 minutes knows that they touch any damn thing.
Yeah.
Hell, as an adult male human, I touch everything in a store that looks like a texture I don't recognize. Maybe it's my autism. Anyway, HPV spread can also occur on contact with contaminated surfaces like shared towels, equipment, or the virus can spread from one part of the body to another, or from a mother to her child during childbirth, or through open cuts and abrasions. All of this is less common, but still possible. HPV was first diagnosed officially in 1949. It was linked to cervical cancer in 1976, and it was further refined in the 1980s and noted as far back as the 4th century by Hippocrates.
Jesus.
Keep that in mind.
To ask you to explain to me why children in daycare would be taking a vaccine against HPV, which is a sexually transmitted disease. What are they concerned about with HPV? You want to know something else about HPV? According to the CDC's website, for HPV, the sexually transmitted disease, which I had never heard of until they suddenly wanted me to take the Gardasil shot. We didn't learn about HPV in school at the time that I was in school until the Gardasil shot. Then we all started hearing about it. Well, for 90% of individuals, HPV clears up without any treatment at all. A miraculous STD. You don't even need to treat it. 90% of the time, it clears up all on its own. But it doesn't matter because they now want children who I would hope are not sexually active to get this vaccine, which is potentially going to prevent them from getting sorts of cancers that have actually increased by...
Okay, so about that percentage. The percentage she cites is, of course, wrong. The actual hopeful percentage for an HPV infection clearing up are 70% of the cases clear up after the first year of infection, and 90% clear up for the second year, meaning that 90% of cases go away within 2 years. However, because there are several different types of HPV, getting an infection properly diagnosed so that a person knows which strain they may have is crucial, because certain types like HPV 16 and HPV 18 are more likely to persist and are among the 4 most common ones associated with cancer development.
Okay.
Now, despite all the lies we've worked through, Candace has some fantasy world building to take us through because truly there is no God. Let's listen to story time, y'all.
God.
Rate in this country since the rollout of this vaccine. Again, does any of that make sense to you? What sort of politicians would put up a bill trying to require all children to have this vaccine to enter school? Who is in their pocket would be the right question. Who is lobbying for this? I think the answer is going to be Big Pharma, because what is clear to me is that this wasn't about health. If this was about health and this was about determining the success of a product that was on the market, Gardasil would be revoked. But no, it's not. Instead, you will come across people that recommend that your children get it. All right, so what is Big Pharma? Because you're going to hear me say that a lot, and I want to make sure that you are clear in your understanding of what I'm talking about. I am talking about a crime syndicate. I am talking about the likes of El Chapo and Pablo Escobar. We sort of watched these fantastical depictions of all that they did, which was horrible and terrific. But we watch it and we go, oh my gosh, it's so crazy to think Mexico and Colombia and the drug cartel, and that Pablo Escobar got so much power that he was electing people in office, that they rigged certain elections, that El Chapo became so powerful that he was able to, that they had politicians in their pockets. We watch this stuff as if it's a fantasy that's so far away. This could never happen in the United States of America. The problem is it already is happening in the United States of America. What I want to make clear to you, and what I think will become clear to you over time, is that what they dreamed of, America accomplished. What they dreamed of was a marriage between the drug cartels, the drug criminals, and the government, right, in lockstep. Could you imagine if, rather than having to hide his cocaine, he could have said, well, let's put it in medicine and sell it. Let's just sell it to people and say that it's healthy for them. Let's put it in the form of an injection and tell people that they need this or else their children are going to be able to die. That's the dream that they had down in Mexico. And that is the reality that we have in America today. And I want to talk about some of the power that they have. They have power via their money. They have power via their influence. They have an entire network of fact checkers. I think if you did not realize how powerful Big Pharma was, you must be aware of it now today after COVID, in regards to the mass censorship that we saw, that we were not able to freely communicate with one another because they had decided that this vaccine was going to save your life. And they have now since walked back a lot of their claims about the vaccine. But if you had said those things at first, if you had said, I don't think it's going to prevent people from being able to transmit the virus, once upon a time you would have had your accounts locked and taken down. Now they admit that. Now they say, well, you can get the vaccine and you can still spread COVID and you can still get COVID. But once upon a time they said that you weren't allowed to say that. That's a scary thing, that people could be telling the truth and being penalized for that. And I've never seen that happen ever in this country until the time of COVID.
Okay, so the COVID vaccines, however and wherever and whoever developed them, those were a fucking miracle of modern science. Mm-hmm. And the result of medical tech that had been in development for decades. Based on the fact that they were being given to a massive, diverse population of adults with massive variance in grades of health and wellness, and that they worked as well as they did, cannot be overstated. I was first in line to get myself vaxxed and get my family vaxxed as soon as we all could. The bullshit Candace is peddling here is that Facebook actually did a responsible thing and kept the bullshit artists like herself and Alex Jones from spitting lies and half-truths to scared people that desperately needed the vaccine to stand a shot at not dying in a horrible manner. Candace always had the freedom to spit lies, and she always has. No one forced her to be quiet, and she never has been. But back to the end of that clip, yes, you can still get COVID and spread it even if you are vaxxed, but the symptoms are not nearly as terrible as dying alone in a hospital bed choking on your mucus, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Next.
I want you to know that Big Pharma does control politicians, and we are going to eventually get into the lobbying, that there are more pharmaceutical lobbyists in Washington, D.C., than you have congressional representatives. That is insane, right? They have an unbelievable budget. They have an unbelievable amount of money and influence in DC. And we are going to get into just how influential they can be, what it takes to even get a shot on the schedule. Not much, to just a little bit or a lot of bit of money, rather. And we're also going to talk about the financial incentives for doctors to keep kids on vaccine schedules. one such story. Obviously, I made a decision not to vaccinate my child, and I will never forget at the time I was living in Washington, D.C. when my son was born, and we went to this wonderful pediatrician, and we basically sat down with her and had a meeting while I was 9 months pregnant, and I said, I don't think I want to vaccinate my child. At the time, I said, maybe we will delay it, but we definitely won't be keeping him on the schedule. And she said, if you don't keep him on the schedule, then we can't have him here. And I sort of pressed her on that. I said, what do you mean we can't have him? She said, well, we can't have unvaccinated children in the building. And I said, well, that's weird because aren't all the children vaccinated until you vaccinate them? So once a child is born, you're happy to have them here when they're not vaccinated. You don't consider them vaccinated the entire schedule until after maybe the first 2 years before there's a break.
Okay, so I had to cut into this one. The earliest a person can get a vaccine is actually birth.
Oh.
The hepatitis B vaccine is usually given within 12 to 24 hours after birth.
That makes sense because, Miles mentioned before that when even over where, born out of state and all that, she still ended up getting that. Mm-hmm. Her and all of the other children ended up getting that after they were born.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a normal vaccine to give kids for, a long time.
Yeah.
So for her to try to say that her special child, produced by her golden uterus, wouldn't be vaccinated when the office clearly has a policy, and to try to force the issue is fucking bonkers.
Yeah.
But let's go on.
Break. So can you explain to me why it would be different if my child was not vaccinated, was sitting in the lobby, versus a child that was going to be vaccinated that was sitting in the lobby? And she couldn't answer the question. And then I realized and I discovered that these pediatricians are receiving kickbacks from the insurance. If they keep a child on a vaccine schedule, they're receiving money. There is a financial incentive to vaccinate your child, which is why even if you say, I just want to delay the schedule, they say your child can't be here. So is this about health? Is this about them actually wanting to make your child better? Or has this become about profit? Are they being motivated by profit? And since I know that no two children are the same, I have two children. There's me and my sisters are not the same. Our allergies are different. Like I said, I had a horrible reaction to Gardasil. My older sister had no reaction to Gardasil. How could you look a parent in the eye and say that we know that this one-size-fits-all treatment is exactly what you need? What is motivating you saying something that we know to be so fundamentally untrue? Children are born different sizes. They have a different capacity to be able to take things in. No adults are the same, right? And yet this is the reason why they are so systematic at the pediatrician's office. Again, we're going to talk about that later throughout the series of financial incentives that are motivating your pediatrician to say, I would rather you not be a child at this firm because I'm not going to make money off of your child. That's essentially what she was saying to me. And we did wind up finding a different pediatrician because we moved to Tennessee.
That was not what that lady was saying at all.
No. And I've got some notes on that. There is no kickback.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the whole profit motive argument is worthy of getting her sued.
Yeah.
Pediatricians do not receive kickbacks from Big Pharma. Most pediatricians that administer vaccines, because of people like Candace, do have to know what they're talking about when parents need knowledge about these things that is factual. Mm-hmm. They do tend to know what they're talking about and care about their patients. Certain medical insurers do provide a small bonus, such as Blue Cross, to pediatricians that manage to get kids on a vaccine schedule by age 2.
Yeah.
That bonus does not typically exceed $200.
No.
Pediatricians often report an operating loss on vaccine distribution to patients, or at most a break even, because of the cost of vaccines, including the storage of them. Mm-hmm. Doctors in America, unfortunately, often find themselves also playing a managerial role in the operation of their practices, which means they have to be concerned about profit and loss, which is a bug of our system. Yeah. It is not a fucking feature. Mm-mm. Ironically, a socialized approach would be lost on Candace. Yeah. Moving on.
The next thing that I want to talk about is fear. That is the number one element. They use fear as a driver. They know that there is no person that is more vulnerable than a new parent. There is nothing that is more motivating than the idea that your new baby is going to die unless you do exactly what they say. And that thing that they say always lines their pockets, right? And if you ask a question, I just remember the fears that I had as a first-time mom. I mean, first time you leave the hospital, you're thinking in your head, like, are they really just going to let me take this baby? Is this responsible? I don't know what to do. It's a new baby. And they know those feelings that you have, which is why they come in and they say to you, this is what you have to do. They prey on that fear. They prey on how you are feeling as a new parent. They're constantly preying on your emotional vulnerabilities. They are preying on the fact that you don't feel secure as a parent. And when I talk about fear as a motivator, I just want to let you guys know, when I had first announced that I was doing this series, when I was doing it outside of the Daily Wire, some of the tweets that we instantly got from doctors was absolutely stunning. So this is just one example. Dr. Sangeeta Reddy said, and by the way, just to make it clear, what I tweeted was this. I tweeted, in 2 weeks, I'm dropping a free video series, 11 episodes, to go through the history of every single childhood vaccination on the schedule. It's taken me almost 2 years to research. I want parents to truly have informed consent. There's nothing in that tweet that if you were a doctor should scare you. I said I'm going to go through the history of childhood vaccination. Why would that scare you if I talk to parents about the history of vaccines? Like, hey, Gardasil was rolled out in 2006. Why would that scare you? Well, Dr. Sangeeta Reddy was terrified. She tweeted, "This is truly terrifying. If we lose the battle on vaccine misinformation, it could have devastating #public health consequences. The anti-vax movement may be focused on COVID-19 right now, but if they destroy public trust in childhood #vaccines, imagine what impact on the world. Imagine the resurgence of polio, measles, whooping cough, childhood, TB, etc. We must prevent this at all costs." I hope people do not dismiss the power many quote-unquote influencers have on the #public health narrative. Wow, she is terrified. Wow, all I said was, discuss the history of some vaccines, and the doctors rush in. She tags the UN in this tweet. She wanted the United Nations to come and take a look at Candace Owens saying she's going to talk to other mommies and daddies about vaccine history. She could not do this. She is not a doctor. What is she thinking? How dare parents talk to each other? How dare they look into the information? They can't understand the information. We're too stupid. We're just parents. You think that's bad? Wait till you see this guy's tweet, because then...
Okay. Now, this video series was made in 2022. Fast forward to today, and guess what is resurging because of bullshit like this?
Polio, whooping cough.
Measles and other things, yep. Great job, Candace. Candace was a known anti-vaxxer at the time she tweeted this, so pretending innocence would be infuriating if we didn't know her work for what it is. But let's let her continue with medical Twitter.
Next one that I saw was even more to the point, and I actually have to say, I think I appreciate his honesty. Dr. Zachary Rubin came in and said, yeah, when millions of people follow a political commentator, a few people will start to be confused or empowered to question a safe and effective medical intervention. Oh, could you imagine parents feeling empowered to question? He is telling you what he really thinks. I love this tweet because he is telling you what he really thinks. And you are absolutely correct, Dr. Rubin. My goal is to make parents feel empowered enough to ask questions. Because believe it or not, we have a right to do that. We have a right as parents to ask questions. And the idea that they had this reaction before I had even launched one episode, before I had actually said anything, they had such a visceral reaction to the idea that parents might become empowered enough to ask a question. That should tell you something, guys. That should make it very clear that they believe that they are authoritarian on the matter, that if you ask a question, you are stepping out of line, and that, in my view, these are things that need to be changed. So let's talk about some of their bullying tactics outside of this fear complex that they try to create, outside of them saying, we are the authority and how dare you even ask us a question. What we're really
So, I have known several doctors in my life.
Mm-hmm.
As long as people aren't asking them to render direct diagnoses outside of office hours, like, hey man, look at this boil.
Yeah.
Look at my fucking foot. Like, what do you think? Like, yeah. They're usually pretty open to discussion on medicine. I mean, they have to be nerds on this shit.
Yeah.
To be effective experts, you have to be a nerd for it.
Yeah.
You have to, at some level, love talking about the worst kind of shit that most people don't want to look at, don't want to know about.
Yeah.
They specialize in the goddamned worst things.
Yeah.
I would not do well in medical school. I would need a puke bucket to get through, and I think they frown on that.
I believe they do, yes.
Yeah, so, most doctors are pretty open to discussion on medicine. What they take offense to are people outside of medicine, especially if they have a specialty. Those people telling them absolute bullshit about their career or course of study or related fields. Candace has always been hostile to actual medicine, and since we have covered her hawking vitamins and other wellness products on her shows, we know that she has a vested interest and stake in giving people alternative advice outside of actual medical experience. That is what pisses off doctors. But she has a hole to dig. Let's allow it to continue.
facing, number one, is the non-expert problems. Essentially, they say, we are the doctors and you are not, and we should just trust them because they have fancy medical jargon. Like, for example, one term, hyperbilirubinemia. That really just means extreme jaundice, but of course they say these really big words because they want you to feel stupid, and when they talk to each other, they sound so much more educated. Another tactic that they use is anachronisms. This is something that you will see over and over again because I want you to recognize these tactics when you see them. Anachronism essentially is when they say, if you don't do exactly what we say, it's going to be just like the Spanish flu. You see this, that's what that doctor, Sangeeta Reddy, just did, right? She's instantly said, we're going to have polio, we're going to have measles, we're going to be back in the 1800s, and all the kids are going to be dying of scarlet fever. They do these sorts of things, and they do love to bring up the Spanish flu of 1918, and it's completely ridiculous and entirely illogical. Obviously, in 1918, you're talking about an entirely different world. There can be no realistic comparison to illnesses that were suffered in 1918 versus 2023 in America. In 1925, so that's 7 years later, only half of American houses even had electrical power, okay? By the 1930s is when indoor plumbing and running water became readily available. So when they say it's going to be just like 1918, they're talking about a time when the majority of households didn't have running water and electricity. Ladies and gentlemen, it is never going to be just like the 1918 Spanish flu, and they know that. They know that. It's impossible. It's why they also, you'll see, use geographical anachronisms. They'll go to like, it's going to be just like, what's happening in Africa. Oh, that's interesting, because in Africa, they don't have running water in certain places. So it's never going to be just like Africa. One of my operating theories here, and we're going to unpack that in later episodes, is that Big Pharma has taken the credit for what sanitation, basic sanitation, solved. Yes, with the explosion of running water and electricity and people that were better able to cleanse themselves, we saw a lot of diseases that were wiped away. And Big Pharma claimed credit. They said, it's because of us, right? We did that. This is the reason why we don't have this anymore. But conspicuously missing is why we don't also have things that they didn't create vaccines for, like scarlet fever. There's no scarlet fever vaccine. How did scarlet fever just go away? How did all of these old diseases just go away? Well, because we got cleaner, right? We became more sanitized as a society, but they don't want you to think that. Instead, they want you to think that those things went away because thank goodness they created vaccines. Thank goodness they created Gardasil. Thank goodness they created the tetanus shot. Wait until we get into the history of the tetanus shot, guys. That is going to be insane. Then, of course, another bullying tactic that they use is emotional blackmail. We've kind of unpacked.
Okay, I'm going to stop her there for a second. Spanish flu spread because people failed to take it seriously and continued to put themselves at risk by doing group activities like attending church, parties, close working conditions, and so on, which is exactly what people like Candace were advocating for during the height of COVID, creating super spreader events, sometimes on purpose. Sanitation in society did help solve a lot of problems people classically had, and I've never seen anything from a pharmaceutical company say otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding scarlet fever, there is no vaccine for it. It wasn't mentioned in the original tweet. She put that shit in there.
Yeah.
But it's relatively rare. Death from scarlet fever is far more rare, and there is a treatment path for it that includes antibiotics.
Yeah.
You had it at one point.
Yeah, I remember that time.
Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
It sucked for all of us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But that is a nonsense argument.
Mm-hmm.
What follows next is a long clip, but I'm keeping it intact to show how Candace operates, as we do here. I also want her entire take on a tragic death laid out before we continue. Before I click play, do you have anything to add to that last segment?
That last fucking segment of...
Horseshit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
First off, comparing modern day to...
The
1918?
The 1920s, yeah.
Yeah. That time period... using that time period as the... Well, you know, you can't compare it to then because they didn't have all of these amenities. Oh, you mean like they didn't have vaccines?
You have a point. Dude, I hadn't thought of that.
Like,
way to go.
That was what was making me convulse over here is because I'm sitting here going, yeah, of course they didn't have access to all these amenities, you know, hygiene wasn't at its greatest, but you know what else they didn't fucking have? Vaccines.
Inoculations, yeah. I mean, they had some inoculations, but they were very primitive.
Yeah.
Like medical science, we didn't even have the FDA at that point.
Yeah.
We didn't have anybody regulating food. Fuck, okay, there's a brilliant series that's on Hulu, if any of you have it, or History Channel, or you know what, fucking torrent it. I don't give a fuck. It's called The Food That Built America. Okay? I watched the first 2 episodes of season 1 last night.
Mm-hmm.
First off, stellar series. Kevin Smith was right. Mark Bernardin was right. Anyway, they talked on there about how bad the conditions of food were. Like, anytime you bought any kind of meat, you were risking everything.
Yeah.
The guy, Heinz, the guy that invented tomato ketchup, did so because they had toured. I think he was visiting some family. Like, he had just lost a fortune.
Yeah.
He'd literally lost a fortune, and had been like prosecuted for the loss of it to his investors.
Yeah.
So he's in like his relative's house, his relative or his friend's house. I don't remember which. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And he sits down to dinner, and he's trying to be a great guest.
Yeah.
And he's eating like this clearly bad meat.
Yeah.
That the lady of the house has cooked. He's sitting there with his friend. He doesn't want to be a shitbag. And they're like, you know, they know it's bad. And they're seeing how much he'll suffer. And then they're like, hey, do you want some catsup?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, please. And so they give him like this weird almond and mushroom based catsup as a sauce. Like, sauces had been used to cover the taste of rancid meat for
years.
A long fucking time. And he realizes how much that sucks.
Yeah.
The whole thing sucks. He just wants it to be better. Well, he somehow, I don't remember the exact path, but he winds up making tomato ketchup because he could get his hands on tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays with things until he finally gets the recipe right. And then they go through like all of the other shit for it. It's fascinating, but he developed that because meat sucked.
Yeah.
Buying meat sucked. There was no refrigeration.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you bought it hoping it didn't go bad in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, that's why it was hurry down to the market and get the meat. I've got the pot ready.
Yeah, get the meat in the morning if you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it didn't get killed out on the farm yesterday and brought in.
Yeah.
You know, like there was no telling. And a lot of times people would just go, oh, well, I'll just cut the bad part off. Well, you can't see where that bad part traveled to in that steak.
Yeah.
You don't really know. You know, it's not like dry aging meat today where they're going to carve a certain portion of that off, but they've got it kind of down to a science.
Yeah.
And it's not really that much of a risk. This was not that. This was people literally eating rotted food.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just meats, it was vegetables, it was milk. Milk has a horrifying history.
Yeah.
Raw milk has a horrifying history in this country. Yeah, like, you know, so yeah, for her to be like, oh, well, you know, they didn't, it was other times. The Spanish flu spread specifically because of people like Candace, specifically in things like the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh, well, you know, not attending Mass because you're afraid of getting sick is a sin against God, because if God intends for you to get sick and die from this, then you should be at Mass where you can get it from God. That was the kind of thing they were preaching. And public health people were like, please don't go out in groups. Please avoid being in the cities like this. We don't want to spread fucking cholera anymore. We don't want to spread these things. We know what it's from. People in the country aren't getting this shit because they're living, you know, rural and distant from each other.
Yeah.
This is a city problem. We're all kind of fucked. Please stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like your plague doctors that stood on the city corner with, you know, their herbs and shit to try and keep you alive,
Yeah.
that were sitting there going, look, I know we all want to see the execution, guys, but maybe
just spread out a little bit.
Maybe spread out a little bit. Oh, Christ. Just here, take some rosemary.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll help you. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm still drilling holes in people's heads to get rid of headaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember your neighbor? You know how he's, well, dead now from bleeding out? Yeah, he bled out on my table because I had to cut off his arm because he got a fucking chicken scratch and it got infected.
Yeah.
And I tried my best.
Yeah.
Don't end up like David.
There were no antibiotics at that time.
No.
The best antibiotic, the best shot you had was to, get something cut off and somebody pour fucking bourbon on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you cannot, it sucked.
Yeah.
It sucked. These things made life better. Like, for these idiots to go, oh, well, I don't know anyone that's gotten polio in a long time, because the vaccine fucking works.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah.
It's almost as if the thing that we're shooting you up with works and actually does what it's supposed to, and that's why you haven't heard of anybody getting this in a long time.
Like, I'll probably jump back into this story when we cover measles down the line.
Yeah.
But I was talking with the person at a Target store about this recently. Mm-hmm. And she told me that she grew up in a family of 7. She's an older lady. Like, she'd be older than my mom. But she works at Target. Anyway, I was talking with her and she said she had a brother growing up. Mm-hmm. And they were like kids before the measles vaccine was available.
Yeah.
And she said her and her siblings all got measles and they all kind of got through it. And her one of her brothers, who'd been a very bright young kid, like excelled in everything, he got measles. He got the worst of it. Mm-hmm. And then it went away. And so everybody was thinking, well, okay. Well, over the next 5 years, this guy's brain went from smart kid to has to wear diapers. Mm-hmm. Went from 8 to 13, smart kid to can't wipe his own ass.
Yeah.
And the doctors determined that it was one of the side effects of measles. Mm-hmm. That it had, due to the fever and everything, it had gotten to his brain and just severely retarded him. Mm-hmm. And she's like, she's like, my other brothers, they went and became doctors, mm-hmm. As a result of this, because they were like, we don't want to watch this happen to anybody else.
Yeah.
She's like, my sisters, they became financial people. And all of us kind of like supported him when our parents died.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he'd been left to his own devices, he'd die.
Yeah.
She's like, he lived for a lot longer than anybody thought he would. And, you know, we had him in the best possible facility, but she's like, it was rough because, you know, because everybody wants to go see him on a regular basis. Like, no one really wanted to shut him out or make him feel, you know, guilty or dirty or anything. Like, the guy still has, like, he knows he's being taken care of by people that are not his parents now, you know?
Yeah.
And she said, you know, she's like, it was rough watching him basically be a young kid forever.
Yeah.
And knowing something was wrong, knowing something had happened. And, you know, she's like, we all tried to explain it to him dozens of ways.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing that we could hope for was that the people taking care of him were kind.
Yeah.
And it's like, Jesus, fuck. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's like, and I wish his story was not one that I had seen repeated in other families. It's like, measles was so bad. When someone in your house had it, you were pariahs until it was done.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, fuck you, Candace.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially because a lot of those measles kids usually, you know.
they didn't make it.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
didn't make it, and if they did make it, they had a pretty big chance of ending up like him of...
Just being fucked up somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like polio. Polio was so bad, she said that polio was so bad. If you heard a child in the next town had polio, everybody went inside.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were some things you just did not fuck with.
Yeah.
You know, that they didn't have anything for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but let's let her do this. I want her entire, as I said here in the script, I want her entire take on a tragic death laid out. So here we go.
This is, if you don't do this, your child is going to die. This is good for your child. Why would you deprive them of this? What kind of a parent are you? How could you even ask this question? What's wrong with you? Do you want your kid to die? You do. I can't even believe you're asking the question. This was kind of the attitude that initial pediatrician had with me. It was sort of like, how could you even, like, wow, are you good? Like, you would even expose your child to anything? Like, we're telling you this is what's right. Why don't you just blanket trust us? And that is emotional blackmail. You shouldn't be making decisions because you arbitrarily believe that your child is going to die. You should be making decisions because you are informed and because you have knowledge and because you, yes, I hate to say it, Dr. Rubin, because you asked questions and you got reasonable answers. And finally, the last tactic that they use is they manipulate data and they manipulate definitions. And I don't really have to pitch this one to you because you saw this. Again, I believe that COVID was a blessing because I don't believe that people would have been so receptive to this message had it not have happened. You'll see this throughout. We're going to unpack polio as just one example where they just magically changed the definition of polio. They changed the diagnostic definition of polio, which led to a decrease in the amounts of polio. They said, oh, that's no longer polio. In 1954, the AMA just changed it. And you'll see this happen over and over again. This happened throughout the times of COVID. So you saw COVID dip and COVID cases go up depending on how high the PCR tests were dialed. To give you one example of how they control data and definitions, and this one really infuriates me. It happened, I am from Connecticut. I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut. You guys know that probably by now. My sisters still live in Connecticut, and during the time of COVID, both of them were pregnant at the same time with their first child. And I remember them calling me, and they were so scared because the current governor, Ned Lamont, had sent out a tweet, and the tweet read, "It is with heartbreaking sadness today that we can confirm the first pediatric fatality in Connecticut linked to hashtag COVID-19. A 6-week-old newborn from the Hartford area was brought unresponsive to a hospital late last week and could not be revived. Testing confirmed last night that the newborn was COVID-19 positive. This is absolutely heartbreaking. We believe this is one of the youngest lives lost anywhere due to complications relating to COVID-19. This is a virus that attacks our most fragile without mercy. This also stresses the importance of staying home and limiting exposure to other people. Your life and the lives of others could literally depend on it. Our prayers are with the family at this difficult time. Okay, I'm really going to try to stay calm in talking about this because I was the person who broke the story on this, and I was personally went to go pursue the truth of this because, as I said, my sisters were traumatized by this. You imagine you have your first children, you live in the state of Connecticut, and your leader, a governor, authors this tweet that the first infant linked to COVID-19 has died. I am not kidding when I say that my little sister did not leave the house. She did not allow us to see the child. She was truly suffering a traumatic psychosis, worried that any person that touched her baby was going to give her baby COVID. And of course she felt this way. I mean, how would you feel as a new parent when this is the information that you get from an authority in Connecticut? But there was something about this tweet that I didn't like. I didn't like that he said a pediatric fatality linked to COVID-19. I responded, I said, what does that mean, linked to COVID-19? What are the details here? I decided to do some digging, and I put out a public notice saying I'm from Connecticut and I believe that Ned Lamont is lying. And if anybody has information related to this death, please reach out to me. Somebody reached out to me, and I am going to protect that person's identity. And they said he is 100% lying. The infant that died did not die from COVID-19. The infant had a mother who was a drug addict who accidentally smothered the infant to death. That is why the infant arrived unresponsive to the hospital, because the infant had been smothered by its own mother accidentally. And then after the infant arrived to the hospital, already unresponsive and dead, they decided to test the infant for COVID-19 with a PCR test that was dialed high, and they decided that the infant also had COVID. And so rather than telling parents this, Ned Lamont raced to be the first governor to say that we had an infant who died from complications related to COVID. The complications were not related to COVID whatsoever. I put this information out into the universe, and sure enough, he began to walk back. He refused to answer any questions pertaining to the death. Reporters were not aggressive enough in asking questions. He essentially said he didn't even want to talk about the case anymore. Do you know how angry I am that this man is still the governor of Connecticut? Because he wanted to make international headlines related to infants dying from COVID, and he lied to the public, and he traumatized mothers everywhere. There is a special place in hell that is reserved for Governor Ned Lamont. I believe that in the bottom of my heart, because you have to be a special kind of evil to do this to young mothers. So I revealed this information, and I am telling you that because we are talking about just how far they will go. They control the data, they control the definitions. So what he did was he had that infant tested, got that information, that PCR test said COVID positive, and then he controlled how that information was presented to the public by saying linked. Oh, and by linked we mean in a postmortem we decided that that baby could have also had COVID, according to this test that we dialed up. That is what we are facing when we talk about big pharma and their collusion with governments to censor information and to control the flow of information, because ultimately what they want to do is inspire you to act one way or another. And in this circumstance, he wanted to inspire parents to stay in their homes, to stay locked down in their homes with their children, and to, of course, when the vaccine became available, instantly get that vaccine. So we are going to pause there because we are already coming to the end of an hour. It goes by so fast, unbelievably.
Okay, so this is why I do this shit. Parents had every right to be worried during the height of COVID, and I worried every fucking day as I was out shopping for people that were rightfully afraid to leave their homes. I was worried I could be carrying a plague or getting it every day. Everyone had a right to be scared, and I can tell you what I did not see during that time, because I was watching people like Candace during this period, these people that were denying basic reality. I did not see them taking their families out. I did not see them walking around unmasked in public with their children. I am sure they would say something like, well, the radical left would have taken my kid and called it abuse, or something similar, But I can tell you that while I was out in the world shopping for other people, people absolutely did take their kids into crowded stores and without masks on. They walked against traffic in the aisles and made jokes about the whole thing being absurd. When I would listen to their conversations, I would hear names dropped of prominent and not so prominent anti-vax influencers. I would hear all the arguments these morons put forth, and yet the people they were discussing were not out there leading by example. Because they fucking knew better, and they knew they could make a buck during the chaos on the backs of people they had always made money on. As for the baby in this case, the child did test positive for COVID at an official autopsy, but showed signs of sudden infant death syndrome having occurred, possibly due to adverse sleeping conditions. For Candace to assert that their mother accidentally smothered the child is worthy of a lawsuit for slander, I think. We're going to round this out with the last clip, which is a sales pitch from Candace for Daily Wire Plus.
What we are going to be discussing in next episode is the vitamin K shots. It's just a vitamin, they say. It's just a vitamin. You are going to be shocked as we unpack that. You guys, I do also want to just let you know how excited I am to bring us Daily Wire. It was not something that was ever on their radar. Obviously, I am not speaking for any of the other hosts, for anybody that work at the Daily Wire. When I say that I don't vax my children, it is not a Daily Wire perspective. But what essentially happened was I created that series personally and for free for everyone on the internet when I first did it, the first 11 episodes.
Bullshit.
And then my show here at the Daily Wire got picked up for five days a week. And I sat down with the executives and I said, you know, I am so grateful to be given a platform here at the Daily Wire. But the most important thing that I do is the shot in the dark stuff. The most important thing that I do is empowering parents to ask questions. And they were really receptive to it. And we talked about all the ways that we could grow it, because obviously we're going to run out of vaccines to talk about. And I want it to be bigger than that. There is so many more things that are impacting our children, so many more things that we can talk about. And I want to make sure that we keep this discussion going. I want your feedback. You guys, you can email me, Candace@dailywire.com, with any questions. I do want to find a place where we can plug all the links. Right now, we are going to keep the first few episodes free because we want people that maybe potentially, like I said early on, don't love Candace Owens and hate all of her viewpoints politically. We still want them to be able to access this information and to see what this show is about for a few episodes. Eventually, we will take it entirely behind the paywall because we have to. It is big pharma, and they will eventually come down and say that you are not allowed to even be having this discussion. So you can definitely get a jump by joining Daily Wire Plus to make sure that you have access to all of the episodes eventually. You can do that by clicking the link in the description and subscribing right now. And also you will see in the description that we are listing the links to all of the sources that we use in this week's episode. You guys, I am at my core really just a mom, and I am sure that I may make a mistake somewhere, and I give you my commitment that when I do that, I will always try to make a correction in the next episode. We are researching every piece of this. We are honing in on the details, but please remember that what I am trying to do here is to make all of this very accessible to you. And I just want to appreciate you guys for sticking with me, and for all of you that supported A Shot in the Dark when it really was just me in my home, sitting down with Savannah and one other person. And you guys are the reason that I brought it back. So thank you guys so much. Be sure to check out dailywire.com. Subscribe to Daily Wire Plus. We'll see you guys next week.
So, I have not listened to the next episode yet. Does she make corrections? I guess I'll find out when I start that slog tomorrow. And to be fair, I won't project my opinion until she has had a chance to correct herself. And if she actually does, we will acknowledge it.
All right.
The only things I spared y'all from hearing in this episode was the intro and outro theme music.
That was an hour's worth of material?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck.
I didn't cut. All I cut was the clips. I didn't cut anything extraneous. I didn't cut any ads. All I cut was the first like 17 seconds of theme music and the last 10 seconds or so. Y'all
hell.
heard everything I heard, all the material in between. So you already hear our theme music, though. Why would you need more?
Fair enough.
Hers sucks. At least
As
ours is
long-
made by an AI.
As long as it's not like weirdly scream-ish. I forget what my own memory blocks out what her theme music is on
that
hers.
was her like pulling a clip from Kanye, from Ye from the song of his Stars. Now that I'm remembering it, yeah, that whole that's from a Ye song. Yeah.
I thought that she just hired maybe some folks that had a couple mental issues and then just like put a microphone in front of them.
We call that person Ye. Come on.
Fair enough.
I read a thing recently, and I don't know how true it is, but it was on one of the many things I follow on Reddit is the Black People Twitter subreddit.
Yeah.
Because there's some genuinely funny shit in there.
Yeah, no,
And one of them was someone had reposted Azalea Banks. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure who she is. I'm not going to pretend to know every fucking celebrity. I know she's famous. I don't know why. I don't care. Anyway, she had reposted a story. I don't know who she had talked to or if it was her own thing, but she said that one of the reasons why people think Kanye is so crazy, and like he eats mints constantly. The going theory on that is that he's got like massive tooth pain, teeth problems, dental issues.
Yeah.
From some accident or something that he was in years ago. And rather than the man has a lot of money.
Yeah. You could get a whole new set of teeth put in.
Apparently, though, rather than, and I don't know, it might not be fixable.
Yeah.
But apparently he has horrendous breath. And and pain from all that shit, and it affects him.
Sounds like if that's the case, sounds like he's probably got some fractured molars that are decaying.
Could be.
And if that's the case, that decay and rot, if it gets into one's bloodstream, can affect the brain and heart.
Oh yeah.
Which could be leading to his
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to his general yayness over the last like several years. I mean, but like when I read that, I was like, if that's true, I didn't respond to it, but I was like, man, if that's true, that sucks. Wouldn't want to be him. At the same time, there's a lot of other people that have these issues that don't have the money that get them fixed. That go, fuck it, I'll pay the bill later.
Yeah.
So. It's like, I can give him a pass for only just a little bit. The rest of it is entirely his choice. And fuck that guy.
I feel like his social group probably also doesn't help either.
Yeah.
His social bubble that he's pretty much locked into at this point.
Yeah. Well, let's drink something full of sugar and other bad things. Let me see this.
Yep.
So tonight's, okay, let's go ahead and talk about what we did earlier today.
Oh, yeah.
So we went to the Mall of America. We noticed we were all kind of tired. We walked around the MOA for a bit, which is something you can do here if you ever visit the fair city of Minneapolis, more specifically Bloomington, where the MOA is. Anyway, we noticed a soda and candy shop on our way going out. It was near the M&M store. It's called Rocket Fizz. I think it's Soda Pop and Candy Shop or something like that.
Yeah, that exact. Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad I remembered that. Anyway, we know where it is now. And, man, they had just a ton of awesome-looking sodas and a bunch that look fucking disgusting.
Yeah,
I'm not going to give up some of the names of the shit we're going to try eventually. But they have a deal. You can buy 4 sodas for like $15, so I did that. I got us some sodas. Now, I had already got tonight's soda at a London Byerly store that I frequent, but I'm kind of running out of options in that store. It's been great for getting stuff up to this point, but I'm kind of running out of options. But we like weird. And man, this store has fucking weird. Mm-hmm. They have things that my Willy Wonka brain would have never considered as soda flavors. And so what I did was I got 2 that I'm going to regret, and I got 2 that I hope I don't regret. And that's going to be the process moving forward. When we exhaust the 4, we're going to go get more because we know where it is, and it's like 10 minutes away from where we stay. Also, I mean, it's a good excuse. It's as good an excuse as any to visit the Mall of America.
That and if we do it like every 2 weeks, like we have been,
well, it'll be
no.
4 sodas every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it's going to stretch us out over the next couple months.
Well, yeah, no, that's what I was getting at was that it won't be like a return trip on a regular basis. It'll be
every couple months.
Every couple of months.
Every couple of months.
Which I mean, it's kind of what we've already been doing over the past couple of years. Is like
with the MOA.
Yeah.
Just show up randomly.
Yeah,
because we're like, let's go do something. What's there? Who cares? Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It usually results in pacing around, stopping by the stone shop, and then
just finding weird shit.
Yeah.
You know what they have there? You can't shop there yet, but I'm going to tell the listeners.
Well, fuck me then.
Yeah. They have a shop in there that sells edibles that are very good. I got an amazing candy bar there called the You Betcha Bar. That's totally Minnesota.
I think I remember you having that one.
It is. I've had all of that one by this point. Not tonight. I'm sober currently. But that was a lemon and ginger candy bar. Holy fuck, it was so good. And like it was fast acting too. Like I would eat like one of those and I would dig into my wife's gummies. I'd get I buy them, so you know. Shut up. But I would eat like a You Betcha bar. I eat 1 or 2 of those, and then 1 or 2 fast acting gummies. And oh my god, that's 15 milligrams of THC just shooting into my bloodstream. It would take me maybe 30 minutes, and I would be high, just wonderfully stoned.
I remember the first time you got stoned because you weren't like opposing to it, but you were pretty like abstinent to it when.
Because I got to keep my brain about me most of the time. Yeah, you know.
You were pretty abstinent to it, and I think it was like one of the first times that you actually like took a day off because you needed to take a day off afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
My sister, who was drinking, THC drinks like crazy, and my mom, who was drinking them like crazy, they were sitting there and they had gotten the seltzer variety.
Yeah.
Well, they poured up the seltzer and they were like, this isn't, really our thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, do you want to try this?
Yeah.
And you went, yeah, sure. And you took a sip of it and you're like, well, I mean, as far as seltzers go, it kind of sucks. Actually, you didn't even think it was a seltzer. You thought it was a beer.
I thought it was a beer, because it was, it was fizzy and shit. And I was
it was fizzy. It was kind of tan.
Yeah.
You were sipping at it, and you were just holding on to the cup, and you're just like sitting there sipping. And, you got asked what you thought of it, and you said, oh, it's kind of shit for beer. And, and they were like, well, it's not a beer. It's a THC seltzer. And you were like, oh. Well, now that you've said that, it's kind of, oh.
Yeah.
And then you just leaned back in the couch and had the cup resting on your stomach and your hand just... I walked into my room and walked out and I looked at you on the couch and you were just like staring straight at your fucking monitor just out of it because you'd already drank half the glass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I didn't. I respect that you don't fuck with this shit hard, but I didn't know. I just thought it was booze, so I was drinking it like I would enjoy a beer. Like, okay, here's a mouthful. I'll swish it around a bit. It tastes kind of weird. Whatever. I think had I known it was a THC seltzer, I would have taken it a little more seriously, a little less. But I still would have drank the whole thing.
Especially since it was a 20 milligram.
Oh my god, yeah, it was a monster, yeah. But yeah, what I like to do is I like to have like a few, a few 5 milligram doses, and then like I'll have like a glass of wine or beer or something, to help take the whole trip. Because I'm not going once I do one of those, I'm not going anywhere, let alone 3 plus booze. But
you know what us youngins call that? Getting crossfaded.
I can see that. Okay.
It's where you take some form of narcotic
Yeah.
to make yourself stoned, and then go, you know what? I'm gonna wash this shit down with some hard liquor, wine, or beer, or even the magical mix of all three.
Yeah.
If you're one of my other friends,
Yeah.
who in their 20s would commonly get crossfaded with acid, shrooms, weed, and then go, hold up, there's a full liquor bar? All right.
Yeah.
And mix vodka with wine, and then wash it all down with a Yingling.
Respect.
And then wake up the next morning and go, oh, fuck, I need to make a Bloody Mary.
Yeah.
Oh, why does everything hurt?
Because of dehydration.
Yes.
Yeah. So this one is probably going to be our last one from this brand for a while. But it's an orange cola from North Star Craft Soda. Claims to be made with real sugar, 150 calories per bottle. We had tried them before with the ginger beer that was really, really fucking good. Ingredients: filtered water, or filtered carbonated water, that's important. Sugar, natural artificial flavor, caramel color, sodium benzoate as a preservative, and citric acid. So, you want to crack that open right near the microphone?
Wow.
Oh, okay.
I'm real.
Try that again.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Is it a twisty?
Yeah, it was a twisty.
Oh, well.
Well, you know what?
Fuck it.
That was a bit of an underwhelming sound.
Yeah.
It's like a squelch.
Not a whole lot of fizz in this.
No, I noticed the
Wow.
same thing with the North Star Craft Ginger beer that I
Yeah.
drank last night. It
Yeah.
didn't have a whole lot of fizz, and I feel like they're adding a different sweetener to it because it had it was like a super sweet taste.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're made with real sugar, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I mean, how did the ginger hit on that one, though?
The ginger did not hit like it did the
previous time?
Yeah.
I mean, these aren't like major mainstream things that people purchase. It could be a date issue, honestly.
Could either be a date issue or perhaps a
Manufacturing.
yeah, because I mean we tried that other brand that was the blue cheese.
Yeah, well,
That was a complete
definitely a
dud.
manufacturing issue.
Yeah, that one was a
Yeah.
complete dud. I know that one was
Yeah.
a complete dud because I asked my friend who I convinced to buy one
Yeah.
and drink it. I was like, so how did that taste? And they said that was the single worst experience of my life.
Fair.
And I was like, oh, good. So it was a dud we got.
Yeah, thank God.
Yep.
They never get another chance. Let's try this now. Mm-hmm. Definitely flat.
Yep.
I mean, I get the orange. It's right there.
Yeah. Okay, see, my problem with anything that's got, like, orange cola or cherry cola,
Yeah.
the cola always overpowers it.
Yeah. And that is kind of the case here, too.
Yeah. On
Like-
top of, yeah, this is definitely, like, flat.
Oh, this is flat as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to finish it off
Yeah.
because I paid for it, but
Depending on the, your beliefs, which if you're watching this, you probably don't think this, but, this tastes a little flatter than the earth sometimes. But
yeah.
it's flatter than the plains of Colorado.
That was a, will not be buying that again.
No. Didn't you say Blue Sun got bought by another company as well?
I heard the Blue Sun shop
Okay.
got bought by a douchebag.
Okay.
I heard that they got bought by a douchebag. That is what I heard. That is allegedly.
Allegedly.
I heard they got bought by a guy who likes to only have cash-only transactions. That being said, I heard other stuff that I didn't like. I heard he was MAGA-centric
Yeah.
and stuff. And there were people that I was reading on the Twin Cities Reddit that were like, I'm not going there anymore because of this list of reasons, and other people confirmed those reasons. So I'm not going to fuck with them anymore.
Yeah.
That said, this I believe was a Blue Sun product. Let's see.
No, because if memory serves...
Oh, no, bottled under the authority of Whistler Bottling in Forest Lake. So not
Okay.
Blue Sun. Blue Sun's based out of Spring Park.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that all being said, do you have anything to add before we cut this?
No, not really. Aside from, Candace Owens clearly doesn't know how to factor in, like, I gotta give her just an inch of credit. She is, factoring in the whole thing of, like, we didn't have certain amenities at certain times that doctors will pull up as, like, hey, this is how history repeats itself.
Yeah.
Bacterially and genetically. She does have a teeny tiny bit of a point of, we didn't have these amenities, so obviously things were shittier.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but also in that list of fucking amenities that you're clearly forgetting is the vaccines that became popularized fucking 20 to 30 years after the fact.
Yeah.
That vastly improved shit moving through the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah. On to today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Including, things like an actual fucking health board to ensure that, if I got shot in the fucking shoulder today, I could get that bullet removed and probably ask for it back in a little casing because I'm that kind of weirdo.
Right.
I would put the bullet that got lodged in me on the wall. Don't judge me.
After the police are done with it, is that
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And, be able to remove everything, make sure it's disinfected, and that I don't die from a fucking bacterial infection because my clothing got wedged in there.
Yeah. Yeah, which is one way that there was an African general in modern times. I think he's still alive. I think he's a televangelist or something now. But he was known as General Butt Naked. Because he would run into battle with no clothes whatsoever. He got shot and stabbed and shit. But one of the theories that Robert Evans has regarding why this guy survived these war wounds was because, like you're wearing these sweaty, dirty things, and you get a wound. Well, you can treat that wound, but if it's infected, you might not know that right away.
Yeah.
And the biggest infections on things come from clothing.
Yeah.
So.
And if you're wearing, if you're wearing garments and such.
Yeah.
And you are at all end up close, which in most combat, you have a likelihood of either getting picked off from afar by that dude up on the rooftop whose name you will never know.
Yeah.
Or by the guy named Brutus in front of you who's now punching your teeth into the table.
Yeah.
No matter what, you're at a risk of getting blood, random shit slung into you, that sort of shit. If you get any form of opening and you've got clothing now either A, run in there, or far worse, you now have clothing sitting on top of you.
Yeah.
Well, blood splatter from Guy B, who could have fucking who knows what in his bloodstream, is now going to get into your bloodstream.
Yeah.
Now, being naked might not reduce the chances of, blood-to-blood shit.
Yeah.
But it reduces the chances of you getting a fucking harbored infection before you're able to see the combat doctor that might not be seeing you for a few days, depending on your current situation.
Yeah, like there's room to go with it, but yeah, she, God. Now, one of the things that we're going to come to at some point here, and I think it'll bear repeating because if anyone's listening to this point, they are diehard. Good for you. But
and thank you for that.
There is, she did 20 episodes. Mm-hmm. She only put up 19. Episode 18 eluded me for some time. I was like, what's it even about? I thought it was about chickenpox. It's not. Episode 18 is all on postpartum depression. Why would you not include that if you made the video? It makes the numbering system go 17, 19, 20.
What?
So what I'm thinking I might have to do, and I don't want to do, but I might do it for the sake of this show. I might pay for 1 month of Club Candace to see if episode 18 is on there.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost doubt that it is, because the guy who put everything up on Rumble, who I will not give credit to, because he's got some questionable shit.
Yeah.
I appreciate what he did. If he's a guy, I assume the username. Anyway, I appreciate him putting these episodes up so that I could get them quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't have that episode up, so it means he either doesn't agree with it or it wasn't available. And it might not be available, because all these other ones are post Daily Wire material.
Yeah.
Everything from 12 or 13 on to 20 is from the new Candace shit.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering, where does this fall in line? But what I'm going on here with these is what is publicly available. You know, what do people who don't have a paywall that they can go through? Mm-hmm. Like if the general public finds out, oh, Candace is on Rumble.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll go look for these videos. Oh, they're also on Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're going with here, is what is the freely available public information that she has put out there time and again.
Yeah.
That causes confusion and fuck-uppery.
Yeah.
You know, so that's it. I guess join us again here in 2 weeks for part 2 of this stupid fucking series.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Have a great whatever it is for you. Bye.
Bye.